Chapter 6:13. The 12 upper-grade primordial spiritual treasures emitted shocking waves of energy. They lay across the boundless starry sky as if they could suppress everything. 12 capital heaven divine killing formation. After a moment of careful observation, Feng Zichen discovered that although the 12 divine halls were independent, their auras were still connected. Moreover, their positions faintly followed a certain path of the Great Tao. As a result, although the 12 divine halls were only upper-grade primordial spiritual treasures, the aura they emitted together was no less than that of a primordial treasure. There was no doubt. This was the 12 capital heaven divine killing formation. Only the 12 capital heaven divine killing formation could have such a powerful ability to raise the strength of the person who set it up by a whole realm. The 12 divine halls of the Pangu Divine Hall, which was refined by Pangu himself, naturally controlled the 12 capital heaven divine killing formation. With the 12 divine halls suppressing the earth veins and the 12 capital heaven divine banners, the earth veins of the untainted land will be safe. Feeling the power of the 12 divine halls, Feng Zichen could not help but smile. It should be known that the combined power of the 12 divine halls was comparable to that of a primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. With the 12 capital heaven divine banners, their strength was bound to be further enhanced. At the very least, it was equivalent to 2 primordial chaos existences working together to protect the untainted land. And this was under the condition that the earth veins' own power was not added. The earth veins formed a large cycle of its own and evolved the shadow of the deity Pangu. It gave birth to infinite creation and possessed a certain degree of self-protection. The primordial spiritual qi refined by the earth veins was also a means to protect the earth veins. In the future, if anyone wanted to touch the earth veins, they would definitely pay the price. Few on the Ziwei star, Feng Zichen looked at the untainted land from afar and felt that everything was different. In the void, there seemed to be a faint breathing sound, which was in accordance with the rhythm of heaven and earth. It contained endless mystery and enchantment. That was the breathing sound of the deity Pangu. In the untainted land, as the endless earth veins flowed, a huge and blurry figure loomed over the entire eastern land. He was the god of Pangu. The Pangu god was created by the power of the earth veins. One could see that as the earth vein flowed, the god Pangu was also breathing. He was drawing in strands of chaotic energy from the outer realm and refining them into the earth vein to strengthen its source. At the same time, as the divine Pangu inhaled and exhaled, the negative auras that the sinkhole couldn't absorb, such as evil auras, were slowly absorbed and refined by the divine Pangu, becoming nutrients for the growth of the earth vein. Believe, as long as there is no more chaos in the primordial world in the future, with Pangu's godly abilities, he could definitely turn the untainted land into a holy land. Unfortunately, this was impossible. As long as there were benefits, there was bound to be competition. In the future, the primordial world would face countless calamities of all sizes. However, there was no doubt that as long as Pangu existed, he would delay the arrival of the immeasurable calamity. On the Emperor's star, Feng Zichen released his divine senses and probed the divine Pangu god on the primordial world. He used his divine senses to observe the world so that he could find a suitable place to place the 12 shrines. 100 years later, under the observation of his divine senses, Feng Zichen had already understood everything about the divine Pangu god. He finally found a suitable place to place the 12 shrines. That was the location of the 12 meridians of Pangu. It just so happened that a shrine suppressed a meridian to protect the peace of the earth vein. Fall. After confirming the location, Feng Zichen didn't hesitate and directly controlled the 12 shrines to land on the primordial world. Rumble. Endless starlight gathered and opened up a huge passage in the starry sky. 12 glorious shrines appeared from the passage and landed on the primordial world with a rumble. The aura of the witch ancestor spread out from his body, shocking the entire primordial world. What is that? Why does it look like the Witch Ancestor Palace? The Witch Ancestor Palace of the primordial spirit treasure level. Looking at the 12 shrines falling from the starry sky, no one dared to stop them even though they were very curious. Just by peeping at the boundless starry sky, they had already received a warning from Goddess Hutu. If they tried to stop this primordial spirit treasure that looked like the Witch Ancestor Palace, Goddess Hutu would come knocking on their door. That would be troublesome. Bang! Soon, the 12 shrines sat on the ground and connected with the surrounding earth veins. Buzz, buzz. Inexplicably, the world seemed to tremble and transmit a sense of excitement. It seemed that the laws of the world had become much more active because of this. At the same time, with the return of the 12 shrines, the blurry Pan-Gu celestial being became much more stable, and an inexplicable change took place. Wisps of chi of creation gushed out from his body, as if he was nurturing something. Go do Tian Divine Banner. When the 12 shrines stabilized, Feng Zichen waved his hand and took out 12 Du Tian Divine Banners and put them into the 12 Witch Ancestor Palaces. In an instant, the primitive world changed again. Endless earth veins surged toward the Witch Ancestor Palace and poured into the Du Tian Divine Banner in the center of the palace. Whoosh! As the Du Tian Divine Banner trembled, a large amount of earth veins' energy was absorbed by it. Then, a divine light flashed and the 12 Du Tian Divine Banners disappeared. What replaced them were 12 terrifying gods and demons of different forms. The 12 Witch Ancestors. At this moment, if someone walked into the Witch Ancestor Palace, he would realize that the gods and demons that appeared in the palace were the 12 Witch Ancestors. However, they were all in a strange state at this moment. Although they had the appearance of the Witch Ancestors, they seemed to be in a daze. They had form but no spirit. It was referring to them. That was right. How could it be so easy for powerful figures like the 12 ancestral sorcerers to return? This time, the Du Tian Divine Banner borrowed the power of the earth veins and evolved the physical bodies of the Witch Ancestors. However, the primordial undying true spirits of the 12 Witch Ancestors had been completely shattered. It was not so easy to reform them. Therefore, the 12 Witch Ancestors in front of him were in a daze. They did not have true spirits. The revival of the true spirits, unless the heavenly axiom intervened, could only wait for them to slowly reform. Boom! As soon as the 12 Witch Ancestors appeared, their terrifying aura swept out and almost suppressed everything. Are the Witch Ancestors back? Everyone was shocked by this aura and almost thought that the 12 Witch Ancestors had revived and returned. However, as this aura flashed and disappeared, they quickly realized what had happened. However, this discovery did not make their mood much better. In their hearts, they already knew that with the establishment of the Witch Ancestor Palace, the return of the 12 Witch Ancestors was a foregone conclusion. The only consolation was that it would take a long time for them to completely return. And during this period, they might be able to widen the gap between them and the Witch Ancestors. Feng Zichen did not know how everyone was feeling, but he was in a good mood. Under the support of the earth veins, the 12 Witch Ancestors' avatars each had a combat power that was infinitely close to the primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. In fact, when they unleashed their full strength, they could even rival the existence of the primordial chaos for a short period of time. With them protecting the primordial earth veins, even the demon ancestor Rahu would not be able to destroy them in a short period of time. From now on, there was no need to worry about the earth veins. Other than Feng Zichen, there were 2 other people who were very happy about the reappearance of the 12 Witch Ancestors. They were the 2 remaining Witch Ancestors of the Witch Clan, Witch Xianming and Goddess Hutu. The 2 of them had not died, so there was no way to talk about resurrection. Logically speaking, the Witch Ancestor Palace was useless to them. However, in reality, The Witch Ancestor Palace's corresponding avatars of the Witch Ancestor Palace were connected to them and could be treated as their avatars. These days, who would dislike having too many avatars? Especially Hutu. She had felt guilty because she had sacrificed herself to reincarnate and caused the 12 divine beings' wraith formation to be incomplete. Now, with the help of the earth veins, she had condensed an avatar of the Witch Ancestor Palace. For her, it was an opportunity to make up for a regret. With this avatar, the perfect 12 divine beings' wraith formation could reappear in the primordial world in the future. The significance of this matter to Hutu could be imagined. The Witch Ancestor Palace. The Du Tian Divine Banner. The power of the earth veins. Under the coordination of God Pangu, the three of them formed a subtle cycle, causing God Pangu to become more and more magical. One could see that in God Pangu's body, wisps of creation aura were born. They were hidden in various parts of the primordial world, silently lurking, as if they were waiting for something. These creation auras were God Pangu's gifts to the world. If nothing unexpected happened, in the future, these creation auras would either transform into innate spiritual objects or innate life forms under the nurturing of God Pangu. In fact, they could even transform into innate godfiends or innate spirit treasures in the postnatal era. Pangu was the most merciful. He could not bear to completely cut off the hope of all living beings. Therefore, he deliberately left a trace of opportunity for all living beings to help them achieve the connate Tao. Feng Zichen could understand this, and he did not care. These opportunities seemed to be quite a lot, but in the entire Eastern land, they were a little small. Moreover, these opportunities were only useful to some low-level cultivators. They were useless to Daluo Jinxian. Therefore, this matter did not affect Feng Zichen's plan at all. Of course, he did not care. Moreover, it was good to leave a trace of hope for all living beings. This could promote the development of the younger generation of the 10,000 races and bring enough pressure to the younger generation of the human race to force them to work hard in their cultivation. Be vigilant in times of peace. Without pressure, where would the motivation come from? The opponents of the human race had never been the 10,000 races of the primordial world, but the demon race, the Western sect, and these forces that stood at the top of the primordial world. If they stopped because of some achievements, then in the future, how could they surpass the peak of the shaman and demon race, and get rid of the control of the saints? The human race needed pressure to force them to continue to improve and become stronger. Sigh. What a pity! The current God Pangu is still not perfect. If the heavenly temple is established and the boundless starry sky is connected to the primordial world, then God Pangu will definitely reach an extremely perfect level and bring more changes to the primordial world. On the Emperor's star, Feng Zichen sighed. At this moment, the foundation of the human race had not been firmly established. It was really not a good time to establish the heavenly temple. Otherwise, if the 10,000 races used this to get rid of the human race, it would really be lifting a rock and smashing its own feet. In the end, it was still because the human race's foundation was not deep enough. If the human race was strong enough, why would they have so many scruples? Just like the shaman race, they could directly push through. The current human race, there was no lack of top-notch experts, nor was there a lack of low-level cultivators. The only thing they lacked was middle-level cultivators who could shoulder the burden. If they wanted to make up for this, they could only spend a lot of time nurturing them. They could not rush it at all. Therefore, what the human race lacked the most was the most worthless time in the primordial world. After the disaster of the innate baleful aura was resolved, the 10,000 races could finally truly cultivate and recuperate. Of course, the process of the world becoming easier also sped up. It was also at this time that the path of the Godfiend finally welcomed its most glorious moment. In order to protect their innate bloodline, the 10,000 races competed to cultivate the path of the Godfiend, causing the path of the Godfiend to gradually flourish in the primordial world, overshadowing the mainstream immortal Tao of the primordial world in one fell swoop. As a result, the luck of the path of the God-fiend soared. It was precisely because of this influence that as the founder of the path of the God-fiend, Feng Zichen received the blessing of luck from the unseen world, and his injuries recovered by more than half. It would probably take a long time for him to completely recover from his injuries and break through to the primordial Daluo Jinxian realm. This was undoubtedly tens of thousands of years faster than the recovery time he had estimated. In fact, Feng Zichen had a vague feeling, as long as the 5 elements Celestial Emperor reached perfection, he could use this opportunity to break through to the primordial Daluo Jinxian realm in one fell swoop. In other words, the return of the 5 elements Celestial Emperor was Feng Zichen's opportunity to reach the primordial Chaos realm. What was the primordial Chaos realm? That was it. Now, the Azure Emperor Fuxi was already in place, and Shennong was about to reach perfection. He was about to ascend to the heavens to replace Fuxi as the new Celestial Emperor. One of the 5 Celestial Emperors was about to reach perfection. There were still 4 Celestial Emperors left before Feng Zichen could reach the Tao. According to the agreement made by Fuxi, the term of the 5 elements Celestial Emperor was only 1 million years. According to this calculation, more than 4 million years later, it was the day Feng Zichen reached the Tao. For million years. If it was in the future, it would naturally be an extremely long period of time. However, in the present, it was nothing. For some existences, it was just the time to sleep. 4 million years was very short. After the earth veins were sorted out, Shennong finally obtained the approval of the patriarchs of the 10,000 races and became the new generation of the 10,000 races. Under this influence, the status of the human race also rose. There was a faint trend of becoming the leader of the 10,000 races. Shennong was benevolent, and his virtue was as resplendent as the sun, illuminating the entire primordial world. The 10,000 races were bathed in his kindness. It was precisely this character that allowed the 10,000 races to truly live in harmony under Shennong's rule, and there were very few disputes. Under the harmony of the 10,000 races, they also allowed the various races to marry each other to show their friendship. Because the human race was born with a Tao body, they were the most popular in the primordial world. Therefore, the intermarriage between the human race and other races was also the most. Chapter 6:14. It was precisely under such circumstances that many branches of the human race were born. For example, the naturally powerful Magihomons, the winged people, or the fire spirits who were born with the ability to control flames, the lightning spirits who were born with the ability to control lightning. In short, all kinds of branches of the human race were active in the primordial land, but in the end, they still belonged to the human race. Under the governance of Shennong, they lived in peace and contentment. Similarly, all kinds of powerful branches appeared, which also caused the strength of the human race to soar in a short period of time. As a result, the strength of the human race completely suppressed all the other races. Of course, other than these, there was another reason that caused the strength of the human race to soar. That was the Heavenly Cycle Temple. Originally, under the suppression of the Heavenly Cycle Temple, the human territory had formed its own body. It contained endless creation and was a level higher than the outside world. And as the primordial land veins were sorted out, the Panga God was formed. The Panga God in the outside world actually faintly resonated with the little Panga God in the human territory. Under the resonance of the two, a miraculous change occurred in the human territory. The trend of the world becoming more stable slowed down. The laws of heaven and earth were also more active than before. This made it easier for the human cultivators to cultivate than before. However, this was not the biggest change. The biggest change was the Heavenly Cycle Temple. Under the influence of this inexplicable change, the effect of the Heavenly Cycle Temple was maximized. Its original level that was comparable to the Khanate era was further improved, and there was a faint trend of evolving into a blessed land. It was easier for cultivators below Daluo Jinxian to cultivate here than in the outside world. It was under such circumstances that the strength of the human race increased rapidly. It was almost the same for 10,000 years. In the blink of an eye, the sea turned into mulberry field. Hundreds of thousands of years slowly flowed past. At this time, it had been 900,000 years since Shennong ascended the throne. In other words, Shennong's rule had reached the end. The new emperor of the human race. It was time for him to be born. On the emperor's star, Feng Zichen suddenly opened his eyes. He formed a seal with his hands and cast a supreme technique to send the Khanate indestructible true spirit, which was wrapped in the imperial purple qi, into the reincarnation passage. That was the true spirit of the ancient human emperor, the Zhou clan. Today, he would enter the cycle of reincarnation and be reincarnated as the new emperor of the human race, leading the human race to glory. In ancient times, the human race was born. The three sovereigns, ancestors, came into being. Emperor Sui Suiren ignited the torch and started civilization for the human race. The Zihuangzi clan used the leaves to cover their bodies and opened up the shame of the human race. In the Chaohuang, the Zhou clan built a wooden nest to protect the human race from harm. These three, he was the ancestor of humanity and also the emperor of humanity. Since he had made great contributions to the human race, he should enjoy the limitless and immeasurable karmic position. One day, in the human territory beside the Jishui River, the silhouette of a divine dragon floated in the air, creating a shocking phenomenon. It was also on this day that Xianyuan was born. Xianyuan was the son of Xiaodian. His surname was Gongsun, and his name was Xianyuan. He was born as a god. He was weak and eloquent. He was young and strong. He was smart and smart. He was known as a peerless genius. Xianyuan was born less than 1,000 years ago. He had cultivated to the realm of Tai Jinxian and transformed into a Khanate godfiend. He was known as the #1 genius of the human race. Shennong cherished his talent and recruited him to teach him personally. It was as if he was training Xianyuan as his successor. When the younger generation of the myriad races saw this, they were all jealous. Therefore, they all came to the human race and challenged Xianyuan to see what he had to be chosen as the successor by His Majesty, the Emperor of Earth. In response to this, Shennong did not stop them and allowed the younger generation experts to challenge Xianyuan. He wanted to use everyone's hands to sharpen Xianyuan. In the tens of thousands of years that followed, Xianyuan spent almost all his time in battle. From the younger generation to the middle-aged generation, as well as the older generation, he fought all of them. Even in the Heaven Realm and the Nether Realm, there were geniuses who heard of Shennong's name and came to the Untainted Land to fight Xianyuan. Xianyuan was the reincarnation of Daluo Jinxian. He was also protected by the Imperial Purple Qi. In addition, he was nurtured by the human race. It could be said that his foundation was extremely deep. Therefore, after countless battles, not only did he not taste defeat, but he became braver and braver. He was vaguely known as the #1 of Tai Jinxian. In the year 920,000 of the Emperor of Earth's calendar, Nuwa sent a decree from the heavens to arrange a marriage for Shennong. The woman was Fairy Golden Phoenix of Palace Wa. This was a relationship that Suiren had formed when he was cultivating in Palace Wa. In the year 930,000 of the Emperor of Earth's calendar, Golden Phoenix gave birth to a daughter for Shennong. In the year 95th of the Emperor of Earth's calendar, in order to prove the Tao of Daluo Jinxian, the Empress Princess and Xianyuan traveled to Donghuang together to try their own opportunities. It was also at this time that Feng Zichen, who was in seclusion on the Emperor's star, suddenly had an ominous feeling in his heart. He saw a huge black hand suddenly appear in front of him, emitting an ominous aura that covered everything. Sudden inspiration. A long-awaited sudden inspiration. Compared to any of the previous times, it was a stronger impulse. It had already evolved into a vision in his heart. How could it not be strong? What? The sudden change caused Feng Zichen to wake up from his enlightenment. Black hand. Black hand behind the scenes? Is someone plotting against the human race? After coming back to his senses, Feng Zichen thought to himself. The shadow of the black hand appeared in his heart. These signs were already very obvious. Someone was plotting against the human race behind the scenes. This is troublesome. Rubbing his head, Feng Zichen had to end his seclusion early to focus on finding the identity of the black hand behind the scenes. It's also strange. Now that the human race is prospering and has the potential to crush everything, it's the time when their luck is at its peak. Aren't they afraid of the backlash of their luck to plot against the human race at this time? Curious about the plan of the black hand behind the scenes, Feng Zichen followed the feeling in his heart and began to use the great Yen divine technique to deduce with all his might, trying to figure out the identity of the black hand behind the scenes. In the end, of course, there was no surprise. He didn't deduce anything. That's right. If it was so easy to deduce, there would be no need for Feng Zichen to do it himself. Forget it. If I can't deduce it, then I won't deduce it for now. Let me see the changes in the human race first. With a thought, Feng Zichen cast a gaze in the direction of the human race. Chi. In an instant, a gaze pierced through the air, piercing through endless space and time. It set off waves of ripples and landed on the human race's torch. Buzz. The torch swayed quietly, and endless information flew out from it, following Feng Zichen's gaze and entering his mind. In just an instant, Feng Zichen understood the changes in the human race over the years. The signs of great prosperity. Overall, Feng Zichen was quite satisfied with the changes in the human race over the years. From the current spirit of the human race, he could already see the signs of dominating the primordial world. How could he not be satisfied? It was just that. The girl went to the East Sea. Is this the legendary Jing Wei filling the sea? When he learned that the girl and Xian Yuan were going to the East Sea, Feng Zichen felt his heart palpitate, as if he had a bad feeling. After connecting it to the myths of later generations, how could he not understand what was going to happen? However, there was one thing that he was very puzzled about. The current human race was no longer the human race in Feng Zichen's impression. It was the same for the dragon race. History had long changed. The dragon race and the human race were unbreakable allies. In this way, why would the crown prince of the dragon race attack the daughter of the human emperor? Moreover, not to mention why the crown prince of the dragon race would attack, even the current girl was very different from the legends of later generations. Her father was the human emperor, Shennong, and his cultivation was unfathomable. Her mother was the first golden phoenix of the primordial world, and her cultivation was at least in the realm of sage-to-be. As their descendant, the girl could be said to be blessed by heaven. She was born as a connate godfiend with the cultivation of a golden immortal. And now, after tens of thousands of years of cultivation, the girl's realm had reached the peak of Tai Jinxian and was about to break through the realm of Daluo Jinxian. In addition, by her side, there was Xian Yuan, a half-step Daluo Jinxian existence. Therefore, if they wanted to plot against the girl, they would at least have to send out an expert at the level of Daluo. However, Feng Zichen didn't think that the dragon race would send out a dragon at the level of Daluo Jinxian to deal with the girl. This didn't make sense at all. The dragon race had no reason to attack their allies. Even if the dragon race wanted to tear up the agreement with the human race, it would have to be the ancestral dragon himself. The other dragons didn't have the right to do so. However, no matter how much Feng Zichen didn't believe it in his heart, the results of his several deductions were telling him that the girl was indeed in danger of dying. "I'm afraid there's something fishy about this," Could it be that someone wants to use this to destroy the relationship between the human race and the dragon race? With that thought, Feng Zichen had a guess in his heart. No matter what, as long as the girl died at the hands of the dragon race, it would definitely cause a huge rift in the relationship between the human race and the dragon race. The girl was the daughter of the human emperor. If she died at the hands of the dragon race, then the human race would have to ask the dragon race for an explanation, no matter what. The dragon race would have to give this explanation even if they didn't want to. If it was the dragon clan that killed the girl, their status would also be extremely noble. Then, the dragon race, who had always been protective, might not let him pay with his life. And this would become the fuse that would break the relationship between the human race and the dragon race. The person behind the scenes might have such a plan. Moreover, according to his plan, if nothing unexpected happens, the chances of this person's plan succeeding are very high. However, he didn't know about my existence, so there was a huge mistake. Secretly, Feng Zichen followed his own guess and used the power of Hongmeng Daozhong and the Jade Disc of Good Fortune to deduce the plan of the person behind the scenes. What a good scheme! If he really succeeds, then the human race will be in big trouble. However, judging from the method of the person behind the scenes to conceal the secrets of heaven, even if his cultivation hasn't stepped into the realm of primordial chaos, he's not far away. A person with such a cultivation level doesn't cultivate properly to achieve the great path, but comes out to plot against the human race. What is he planning? After learning about the other party's plan, Feng Zichen didn't feel relieved. Instead, he was even more puzzled. The prosperity of the human race was driven by the way of the heavens. Anyone who obstructed the prosperity of the human race was going against the heavens and had a worrying ending. This person's cultivation level was so high that he couldn't not understand this. But even so, he still put the plan to obstruct the human race into action. How should he put it? This person either had some amazing plan or had some irreconcilable hatred for the human race. It's really strange. Where did this bastard come from? After thinking for a long time, Feng Zichen couldn't figure out who was plotting against the human race. He couldn't help but be secretly annoyed. I don't care who you are. Since you want to plot against girl, then I'll follow behind her. As long as you dare to make a move, you will definitely reveal a flaw. With a thought, Feng Zichen left Ziwei Star and rushed to Emperor Nhua's palace to look for Ao Shui. It was related to the dragon race. It was better to bring Ao Shui along. Besides, he and Ao Shui hadn't traveled to the East Sea for many years. They could take advantage of this opportunity to visit their old home. Rumble. On this day, violent fluctuations suddenly erupted in the East Sea. It was as if there were primordial chaos experts fighting. A terrifying power swept out, making everyone breathless. On the other hand, the primordial world was not affected because of the suppression of the 12 shrines. The East Sea was suspected to be a battle between primordial chaos experts. Naturally, it attracted the attention of the primordial chaos experts immediately. Swish, 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 almost instantly, terrifying gazes looked towards the East Sea. There were two extremely blurry figures that were constantly intertwining. Is it Great Emperor Ziwei? Then, who is the other person? Feng Zichen didn't hide his identity, so everyone could recognize him. However, unlike Feng Zichen, the other person seemed to be a little secretive. His entire body was enveloped by an inexplicable Dao rune, making it impossible for people to recognize his origin. Die. Just as everyone was guessing the identity of that person, in the heavenly court, Qing Emperor Fuxi mobilized all the power of the heavenly realm and attacked that person. Rumble. At this moment, that person was fighting with Feng Zichen with all his might. When he realized that Fuxi had attacked, it was too late for him to dodge. However, this person was also a decisive person. Seeing that he couldn't dodge Fuxi's attack, He detonated his body on the spot. Boom! Violent power erupted, wanting to destroy everything. In order to protect the East Sea, Feng Zichen had to withdraw to suppress the power generated by that person's self-detonation. Fushi's palm that fell from the sky had to change its direction and help Feng Zichen suppress the violent power. That person's innate indestructible true spirit took this opportunity to leave calmly. ****starred. Feng Zichen wanted to make him stay, but the power of the self-detonation was too great, so he couldn't escape. He could only watch that person leave. "Your Majesty, don't worry, we're coming." When the experts who were watching saw that person self-detonate, they knew that something was wrong. Therefore, they rushed to the East Sea almost without hesitation to help Feng Zichen quell the disaster. In the East Sea Dragon Palace, the Dragon Emperor and the experts of the Aqua Clan also appeared and joined in. Hundreds of experts worked together and erupted with unimaginable power. Soon, the disaster that almost affected the entire East Sea was wiped out. Oh my God! Hundreds! How can there be so many experts in the primordial world? Chapter 6:15. After the calamity subsided, Feng Zichen glanced around and found that there were hundreds of top-notch great mediums around him. This really gave him a fright. When did so many experts appear in the primordial world? Was this still the primordial world that he was familiar with? If there were so many great mediums in the primordial world in ancient times, how could the shaman and demon race be so arrogant? Perhaps even a saint would have his hands and feet tied when doing things. It seems that the appearance of these strange great mediums is the result of the last tribulation of the chaos demon god. After thinking carefully, Feng Zichen understood what was going on. There was no lack of experts in the primordial world. Especially after Tao ancestor Hong Jun preached in the Purple Cloud Palace, there was no lack of experts in the primordial world. However, these experts were determined to pursue the Tao. Fame and fortune were nothing to them. They only had the great Tao in their eyes. They were all true ascetic cultivators. It was precisely because of this that after Tao ancestor Hong Jun finished preaching, these experts all went into seclusion to pursue the Tao. However, their powerful strength eventually attracted the attention of the Chaos Demon God, and they were forced to be involved in the previous tribulation of possession. Due to this, after the tribulation of possession, their strength improved greatly. They all saw the possibility of taking a step forward on their previous path. For this reason, they walked out of their seclusion and came to the primordial world. They once again stepped into the mortal world to verify their path of Tao. And that was the reason why a large number of great mediums suddenly appeared in the primordial world. The great mediums who lived in seclusion were walking out of their seclusion, one after another, and joining the primordial world stage to show their existence. Change. There had never been a change since ancient times. Many experts appeared together. The power hidden in the dark of the primordial world gradually surfaced to show the most complete side of the primordial world. At the same time, this was also a great era. It was even more brilliant than when the shaman and demon race fought for hegemony in ancient times. The heroes fought for hegemony, each with their own style. Fellow Taoists, do you know the origin of that person? Suppressing the fluctuating emotions in his heart, Feng Zichen asked everyone softly. The identity of the person behind the scenes was mysterious, and Feng Zichen could not recognize him at all. But just because he couldn't recognize it didn't mean that the others couldn't either. There were only so many experts in the untainted land. Almost all of them were famous. There were no great mediums without any background. Feng Zichen was young, so he didn't know much about the experts from the ancient, and immemorial era. However, they were all experts from ancient times. They had a clear understanding of the experts of the untainted land. It was very likely that they could recognize the origin of that person. It was still the same sentence. Once it existed, there would be traces left behind. Unless they transcended everything, they would definitely leave some influence on others. Half-step primordial chaos existences weren't cabbages that could be found on the roadside. Hearing this, a few great divines who were more familiar with Feng Zichen couldn't help but frown. It seems familiar, but also unfamiliar. That person is very cautious. The divine abilities he uses are all clearly concealed, making it impossible for others to see through his true origins. But there is no complete secret technique in the world. Although that person tries his best to hide, Poor Wei and the others can still vaguely see some traces of the Purple Cloud Palace from his methods. In other words, that person must be one of the 3,000 guests of the Purple Cloud Palace back then. However, seeing this is already the limit of Poor Wei and the others. As for the true identity of that person, Poor Wei and the others can't do anything about it. After a while, Zhen Yuanzi explained to Feng Zichen. The 3,000 guests of the Purple Cloud Palace? Hearing this, Feng Zichen roughly understood what was going on. The experts who had escaped from the world might not necessarily be on their side. It was not impossible to stand on the opposite side of them and be their enemy. Wasn't that the person just now? I'm sorry to trouble you, fellow Taoists. This information is enough. Feng Zichen's heart was full of twists and turns, but his expression didn't change at all. He thanked everyone. It's okay. You're welcome, Your Majesty. Poor Wei and the others didn't help much? Zhen Yuanzi and the others shook their heads and said politely. Since there's no problem here, Poor Wei and the others will take their leave first. Just as they were chatting, the other powerful figures saw that the disaster had been resolved and left one after another. Then, Zhen Yuanzi and the others who Feng Zichen was familiar with also left one after another. Interesting. The primordial world is getting more and more interesting. Looking at the figures of the leaving crowd, Feng Zichen sneered in his heart. Perhaps Zhen Yuanzi and the others really didn't recognize the origin of that person, but among the hundreds of powerful figures present, there were definitely people who recognized the origin of that person. However, that person didn't intend to tell Feng Zichen about it. In the end, the reason was still for benefit. Not everyone was happy to see the human race become more and more prosperous. The destiny of heaven and earth was limited. The more the human race occupied, the less other places occupied. Just this point alone affected the interests of too many people. Therefore, for the sake of their own interests, they might not dare to go against the general trend, but they could still secretly hinder the development of the human race. Scheming against the girl was the beginning of everything. Sigh. What an eventful year. After everyone left, Feng Zichen didn't leave. He stood above the East Sea with his hands behind his back, as if he was thinking about something. He was recalling the appearance of the powerful figures present, trying to see the connection between them and that person from their expressions. Since they were from the Purple Cloud Palace, it was hard to guarantee that they didn't have a few comrades. Perhaps the plan against the human race this time wasn't carried out by one person, but by many people working together. As expected, I can't tell. After recalling it several times in his mind, Feng Zichen still didn't find any problems. In the end, he had no choice but to give up. That was true. Everyone was smart. How could they make such a low-level mistake? In the 950th year of the Earth Emperor calendar, when the Empress Concubine and the human Xian Yuan were traveling in the East Sea, they were attacked by a mysterious expert. At the time of the incident, several powerful cultivators came to his rescue, and a world-shaking battle erupted between them and the attackers. The process of this battle was unknown. Everyone only knew the result. The Empress Concubine mysteriously disappeared, and Xian Yuan was seriously injured and on the verge of death. For a moment, all the races were in an uproar. They all cursed the attacker for his treachery. There were even some people with ulterior motives who pointed the finger at Xian Yuan. They thought that it was because he didn't protect her well that the Empress concubine mysteriously disappeared. There were also some conspirators who thought that this matter was all planned by Xianyuan. He was using this opportunity to get rid of the Empress concubine to ensure his position as the successor. These remarks, under the guidance of some people, they quickly spread throughout the races, causing people's hearts to fluctuate. Under this influence, Xianyuan, who was recuperating, had a great impact on his reputation. He had a faint tendency to be criticized by everyone. The person behind the scenes, he wanted to kill people with rumors. In the end, these rumors even alarmed the Earth Emperor, Shenong. Shenong had no choice but to personally come forward and clarify the matter for Xianyuan. Only then did he suppress the rumors. However, the seeds of disaster and chaos had already been planted. They took root in the hearts of everyone and were waiting for the passage of time to slowly take root and sprout. It was true that Xianyuan was seriously injured, but the girl didn't go missing. She was brought back to the palace of Empress Hua by Ao Shui. Now that the situation in the primordial world was unpredictable, it was inevitable that the girl would become the target of the person behind the scenes if she continued to stay in the human race. Therefore, Feng Zichen directly asked Ao Shui to take the girl away to completely solve Shenong's weakness. And Feng Zichen carried out this matter in secret. Other than informing Shenong, he didn't tell anyone else. In fact, even the news of the girl's mysterious disappearance, it was all released by Feng Zichen. In order to make things more realistic, he even personally forged the secrets of heaven and confirmed the mysterious disappearance of the girl. Now, anyone who tried to deduce the whereabouts of the girl could only get the answer that Feng Zichen wanted them to know. This was also the reason why the myriad races didn't suspect the authenticity of the girl's disappearance. In their deduction, the girl was secretly exiled by a mysterious attacker. Yes, that's right. From a certain perspective, the situation that Xianyuan was facing now, a large part of the reason was Feng Zichen. This was fishing. Feng Zichen wanted to use this matter to fish out all the undercurrents hidden in the human race. Then, Xianyuan would come forward and wipe them out one by one. And this was Xuanyuan's contribution. Wipe out the myriad races and unify the primordial world. This is the hidden danger of the human race. What a headache. It's the most heart-wrenching to fight against one's own family. On the Emperor Star, Feng Zichen silently watched the primordial world and saw everything. Naturally, everything that was happening to the human race couldn't be hidden from him. Not only that, but he also saw the secret plans of the myriad races. This was the benefit of being powerful. He could see through people's hearts, understand karma, foresee danger in advance, and so on. It was almost impossible for there to be any conspiracy that could hurt them. Often, as soon as the living beings had bad thoughts, they would immediately be sensed by the powerful beings and be on guard. Now, Feng Zichen was personally supervising the myriad races. No matter how tightly they hid, they would never be able to hide from Feng Zichen. The battle between the mutants and the pure-blooded humans? Under Feng Zichen's gaze, the plans of the myriad races gradually surfaced. That was to provoke a conflict between the mutants and the pure-blooded humans. Under the pressure of the 2 generations of human emperors, the myriad races gradually lost their ambition to compete with the human race. But under the drive of interest, they also had other thoughts. For example, they supported the human race, who had the bloodline of their own race, to ascend to the position of human emperor. In this way, the new human emperor would naturally be biased towards them, causing their status to rise. If Xianyuan ascended to the position of human emperor, then Xianyuan, who was a pure-blooded human, would never have any bias towards the myriad races. Not to mention benefiting from it, it would be good enough if he didn't suppress them. Therefore, the myriad races definitely didn't want Xianyuan to become the successor of Shenong. They had to think of a way to get Xianyuan down to support the person they chose. In this situation, The pure-blooded humans would never allow it. As for the variant bloodline, they were naturally happy to see this happen. As the latest powerful force to rise within the human race, they had long desired the power of the human race. The change of the human emperor was the best opportunity for them to get their hands on the power of the human race. It was not difficult to understand the thoughts of the mutants. They were all humans. Why was the power of the human race in the hands of the pure-blooded humans and not in the hands of the mutants? The pure-blooded humans had controlled the power of the human race for so long. It was time for them to step down and let the mutants take over. This was the impact of the new force on the old force. It was also a power struggle within the human race. The myriad races wanted to support the mutants, while the mutants wanted to seize the power of the human race. The two hit it off. In addition to the bloodline connection, they would naturally work closely together. What about the pure-blooded humans? Of course, they would not sit back and watch all of this happen. They would definitely take action to curb the development of the mutants. This kind of matter was fundamentally irreconcilable between the two sides. In the end, it would definitely become a war that would affect the entire primordial world. No one could stop it. This was also the last great calamity before the human race became the overlord of the world. And this great calamity might be what the mastermind behind the scenes wanted. The great calamity would definitely be accompanied by great chaos. And the more chaotic the primordial world was, the greater the chance to take advantage of the situation. Since we can't stop it, let's do it. A battle to determine the future of the primordial world. On the Emperor's star, Feng Zichen gradually made up his mind. In this civil strife of the human race, he was undoubtedly on the side of the pure-blooded humans. It was not that he had any opinions about the mutants. In fact, whether it was the pure-blooded humans or the mutants, as long as they had the human race in their hearts, Feng Zichen treated them all equally. And in this civil strife, the reason why Feng Zichen stood on the side of the pure-blooded humans was undoubtedly because the mutants had touched the reverse scale of the human race. If the mutants used their own abilities to oust Xian Yuan and even the pure-blooded humans, then Feng Zichen would have nothing to say. This was their own ability. With their own powerful strength, they had won everything for themselves. Who could say otherwise? The pure-blooded humans were inferior to others, so there was nothing to complain about. But now, in order to fight for the power of the human race, the mutants did not hesitate to join forces with the 10,000 races. This was something that Feng Zichen could not tolerate no matter what. Behind closed doors, it was their own business how they fought. But if outsiders were to join forces to bully their own people, that would be a taboo. The actions of the mutants were obviously joining forces with outsiders to bully their own people. To put it nicely, they were blinded by greed. To put it bluntly, they were helping outsiders. In order to seize power, they did not hesitate to join forces with outsiders to bully their own people. How could Feng Zichen dare to let them steal the power of the human race and control the right to speak of the human race? The mutants were also brainless. If they attracted the 10,000 races today, weren't they afraid that they would not be able to get rid of them in the future? Moreover, from the attitude of the mutants towards the 10,000 races, if they were to gain power in the future, they would definitely be close to the 10,000 races and stay away from the pure-blooded humans. This was the rhythm of dividing the human race. They already believed in their hearts that they were different from the pure-blooded humans. Chapter 6:16. In the end, between the mutants and the pure-blooded humans, there was still a fundamental difference. The pure-blooded humans, both the paternal and maternal families, were pure-blooded humans. What about the mutants? Other than the paternal pure-blooded human bloodline, they also had the strength of the maternal bloodline. That was the most fundamental difference. Sigh. Since you intend to use external forces to interfere with the change of power of the human race, don't blame me for being ruthless. I hope that this time I can teach you a lesson. Strength, Only when it belongs to oneself can one be completely at ease. Sighing softly, Feng Zichen already had a comprehensive plan in his heart. With a thought, the incarnation of Fengdu in the netherworld immediately sensed it and immediately walked out of the bedroom to visit the Hutu in the Hall of Reincarnation. Empress, poor Wei wants to borrow someone from you. In the Hall of Reincarnation, the ghost emperor of Fengdu said to the Hutu with a smile. You want to borrow someone from me? That's really strange. Tell me, who do you want to borrow? Hearing Fengdu's request, the Hutu felt that it was very strange and said to him with a smile. Wu Shi-san. Ignoring the Hutu's teasing, the ghost emperor of Fengdu said directly. During the battle between the lichas and demons, Wu Shi-san was the weakest. Therefore, the moment the 12 divine wraith formation was broken, he was directly killed by the backlash. Because he died too quickly, Feng Zichen did not manage to collect his true spirit fragments. However, Feng Zichen could not collect them, but the Hutu, who was always thinking about the witch clan, could definitely collect them. Even if the Hutu could not collect them at that time, she had the only chaos treasure of the primordial world, the 6 paths of reincarnation disc. With this convenience, and after such a long time, she should have collected them by now. Therefore, it was definitely right to ask the Hutu for Wu Shi-san's innate true spirit. 13th brother. Why do you want to borrow him? At this moment, the Hutu was curious and asked Fengdu in confusion. In her impression, she did not have any memories of Feng Zichen dealing with Wu Shi-san. Even if they were unrelated, why did he want to borrow them? Give him an opportunity. It's also a great achievement for Xianyuan. The Fengdu ghost emperor said with a smile. How so? Hutu frowned and asked in confusion. Next, Fengdu told the Lady of Earth about the current situation of the human race and Feng Zichen's plan. You mean to let 13th brother reincarnate into the Magihuman tribe and become the leader of the Magihumans? Then, with your own strength, you will unify the non-human tribes so that you can lead the experts of all the races to compete for the throne of the human emperor with Xianyuan, the candidate that you have chosen. After hearing Feng Zichen's plan, Hutu was even more confused. Although Xianyuan was not bad, how could he be a match for Wu Shi-san? If the two of them fought, wouldn't that be tantamount to giving up the throne? If that was the case, what was Feng Zichen after? That was why Hutu was puzzled. Yes. Fengdu Ghost Emperor nodded, indicating that Hutu was right. But why? Hutu felt that things weren't that simple and continued to ask. Of course it's to wipe out the myriad races in one fell swoop. At this moment, Fengdu Ghost Emperor said in a deep voice. Then, without waiting for Hutu to ask, he took the initiative to say, therefore, the battle between Wu Shi-san and Xianyuan can only be lost, not won. Yes, that's right. Feng Zichen's plan was to act out a wave of mutants and all the races. If he let Wu Shi-san reincarnate as a human and become the leader of the mutants, then wouldn't the internal strife of the human race be controlled by him, Feng Zichen? Both sides are my people. What do you have to fight with me? He was able to casually arrange the 10,000 races and make arrangements for them. So, you're borrowing people from me. Is it to act with you? Hutu shook her head and laughed. That's right. This matter can help Xianyuan and also give Wu Shi-san a great opportunity. It's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I hope that the Empress will agree. Fengdu Ghost Emperor nodded and asked Hutu solemnly. Feng Zichen, let's not talk about anything else. Are you so confident that I will cooperate with you to act? You have to know that that's the human emperor, the immortal and indestructible quasi-saint karma position. His status is comparable to that of a saint. Aren't you afraid that I'll make the act real and let Shi-san snatch the position of the human emperor from Xianyuan? Hutu seemed to find it interesting. She looked straight into Fengdu Ghost Emperor's eyes and said word by word. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. Haha. If the Empress has such an intention, I naturally won't refuse. I'm even happy to fulfill it. Wu Shi-san has a noble status. If he becomes the human emperor, it will definitely increase the foundation of the human race. What reason do I have to refuse? It's just that, I can agree. But the Empress, are you willing? Suddenly, Fengdu Ghost Emperor laughed loudly and said in a clear voice. Wu Shi-san was formed from the essence blood of the 12 witches. He was the top innate god-fiend with the potential of the primordial chaos. If such a person was given enough time, his future could be said to be limitless. If such a person became the human emperor, Feng Zichen really had no reason to refuse. One had to know that the human emperor was different from other humans. This was the karmic position of heaven and earth that was specially created by the heavenly Tao in order to prosper the human race. In other words, those who obtained this karmic position were bound to do their best for the human race and could not betray them in the slightest. Otherwise, the backlash of the human race's destiny and the heavenly Tao would not let them have an easy time. Only the human emperor could not betray the human race. As long as he became the human emperor, it did not matter what his previous identity was or which force he came from. He could only be a human. So, if Wu Shi-san really wanted to join the human race, Feng Zichen naturally raised his hands in agreement. But just as Feng Zichen said, if he could agree, how could Huda be willing? This kind of existence that was destined to become the primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian was a treasure in any race. They wanted to worship him, so how could they easily give him to an outsider? Was there something wrong with her brain? It was the same for all races, and so was the witch race. Therefore, Feng Zichen was not worried about what Huda said at all. Because he could not bear to. Yes. I can't bear to. I agree to this matter. I hope you don't forget what you said and give 13th brother a great opportunity. Wizard. Huda sighed in disappointment, as if she was recalling the glory of the witch race in the past, and said in a low mood. Then, she waved her hand and put the true spirit fragments of Wu Shi-san that she had collected over the years into the 6 paths of reincarnation to let him reincarnate. To be honest, Huda's method of reincarnation was much better than Feng Zichen's. After all, her identity was there. Thank you, Empress. Zichen will never forget what I promised, Empress. Fengdu bowed respectfully to Huda and slowly left. However, just as he was about to leave, he seemed to have suddenly thought of something and said to Huda, Empress, there are many powerful people in the primordial world now, and the situation can be said to be changing every day. It's hard to guarantee that no one will have designs on the ancestral Magi Palace. So, in my opinion, it's better for Empress to send some great wizards to guard the ancestral Magi Palace in case there are any changes. These days, the powerful people who lived in seclusion came out one after another. There might be some who were not afraid of death or had a grudge against the ancestral Magi. They would desperately destroy the ancestral Magi Palace to prevent the return of the ancestral Magi Palace. These had to be guarded against. Therefore, Fengdu Ghost Emperor reminded her. You're right. We have to guard against this. Back then, my brother and the others provoked a large group of enemies. They might take this opportunity to seek revenge. I'll send Xing Tian and the others to guard the ancestral Magi Palace later. Huda couldn't help but worry after hearing Fengdu's words. She hurriedly sent the few remaining great wizards to guard the ancestral Magi Palace. In the 960,000th year of the Earth Emperor's calendar, Wu Shi-san reincarnated as a human and was born in the wizard tribe. His name was Chiyu. In the same year, under the secret instructions of Feng Zichen, some of the clansmen of the 5 primordial clans, whose paths of cultivation were cut off, escaped from their true spirits and reincarnated into the human race. They either assisted Xianyuan or Chiyu. When Chiyu was born, a shadow appeared. The image of the wizard ancestor appeared, and the phenomenon shook the area within 1,000,000 miles. This action not only alarmed the human race, but also the wizard race. Because of this, a great wizard from the wizard race, who had not appeared in the world for a long time, rushed to the human race and personally taught Chiyu how to cultivate. As for the human race, they didn't fall behind either. After realizing Chiyu's talent, they were afraid that he would be abducted by the wizard race. Therefore, in the ancient land of the human race, a peerless figure walked out of the Seven Stars continent of the Eastern Sea. He brought the ancient god-fiend scriptures written by the ancient human emperor, Zichen, to teach Chiyu. The Seven Stars continent of the Eastern Sea was the true ancient land of the human race. It was created by Feng Zichen in the ancient times. It was located in the hinterland of the Eastern Sea and was one of the escape routes of the human race. This place had never experienced the massacre of the human race by the demon race. It was the only force of the human race that had been passed down from the ancient times. Back then, the demon race used the power of the entire race to curse the human race, causing the human race to degenerate and become beasts. Of course, the human race in the Seven Stars continent of the Eastern Sea was also affected. The dragon emperor of the time, Aotion, the son of the ancestral dragon, couldn't bear to see the human race end up like that. Therefore, he used the power of the entire race to seal the Seven Stars continent, completely isolating it from the demon race's curse. It was also from that moment on that the Seven Stars continent's space-time completely froze. It wasn't until Fuxi ascended the throne and unified all races, causing the human race's providence to reach its peak. The humans of the Seven Stars continent were affected by this and broke the seal, reappearing in the world. Because the Seven Stars continent had never experienced war, most of the ancient human race's legacies were preserved there. This also caused the Seven Stars continent to become the sacred land of the human race. At the same time, it was also the sacred land of the god-fiend Tao. As such, one could imagine the Seven Stars continent's status in the human race. Most people who were successful in cultivating the god-fiend Tao would head to the Seven Stars continent to comprehend the god-fiend Tao ancestors' aura and leave behind some of their legacies. Over the years, the Seven Stars continent had recorded the legacies of countless god-fiend Tao experts, becoming the sacred land of the god-fiend Tao that everyone yearned for. The peerless figures that walked out of this place might not be inferior to the ancestral shamans. This was the true foundation of the human race. Two peerless figures personally taught Chiyu. It could be said that this was a unique treatment for the human race. For a time, Chiyu attracted a lot of attention from all races. As for Chiyu, he lived up to his name as a genius. His talent could be said to be the best of all races. Even Xianyuan was inferior to him. With such a figure, the mutants were naturally very happy. They saw the possibility of surpassing Xianyuan from Chiyu. However, Chiyu was outstanding, but Xianyuan wasn't bad either. After the disappearance of the Empress became depressed day by day. Not long after, she died due to excessive grief and exhaustion. First, his daughter mysteriously disappeared, and then his wife passed away. This was a huge blow to Shino. Affected by this, Shino gradually became reclusive. He no longer dealt with the affairs of the human race and handed everything over to Xianyuan. He immersed himself in cultivation to relieve the sorrow in his heart. Under Xuanyuan's rule, the human race could be said to be thriving day by day. Moreover, Xianyuan was a fair person and would not favor any side. Any dispute that reached his hands would be dealt with in the most fair way. All of these made Xuanyuan's name spread throughout the untainted land. Even the mutants couldn't find a reason to attack Xianyuan and pull him down from his position as the successor of the human emperor. Yes, not long after returning from the East Sea, Xianyuan stood up. While recovering from his injuries, he became Deluo Jinxian in one fell swoop and made up for his shortcomings in cultivation. Xianyuan could be said to be a perfect person. He was simply impeccable. The mutants tried everything to find a reason to attack him. The only reason they could find was the mysterious disappearance of the Empress concubine. However, His Majesty Shino had personally ordered that no one was allowed to discuss this matter. Therefore, the mutants didn't dare to use this matter as a reason to avoid angering Shino. As time passed, Chi-Yu gradually grew up and became more and more outstanding. Not only did he become the leader of the Witchmen, but he also subdued the surrounding 72 tribes of mutants, large and small. Even a portion of the Witchmen admired Chi-Yu very much. They didn't hesitate to leave the Witchmen and come to the human race to seek refuge with him. This also made Chi-Yu's name more and more resounding. He was vaguely known as the #1 person of the younger generation of the myriad races. But even so, Chi-Yu couldn't be compared to Xianyuan. This was because Chi-Yu was still making contributions, while Xianyuan had already made a name for himself. He was currently gradually taking over the power of the human race. Every decision he made could affect the current situation of the myriad races. Just this point alone was far from being comparable to Xianyuan. In the eyes of everyone, Chi-Yu was just a junior, a child. And Xianyuan was already an adult. The two were far from comparable. It was precisely because of this that the leaders of the mutants were very depressed. Especially the more outstanding Chi-Yu's performance, the more depressed they were. Xianyuan had no fault, so they had no reason to oust him. Shino wouldn't replace Xianyuan just because Chi-Yu was better than Xianyuan. In this way, wouldn't it be a mess? Changing the successor for no reason was a big taboo and the source of chaos. Since Xianyuan couldn't be replaced, so what if Chi-Yu performed well? Sigh. They only hated that Chi-Yu was born 30,000 years later. This was the sigh of the mutant leaders. Chapter 6:17. If Chi-Yu and Xianyuan were born at the same time, the current situation would be completely different. With Chi-Yu's talent, he would definitely surpass Xianyuan. It was still uncertain who would become the successor of the human emperor. However, it was useless to say anything now. Xuanyuan's power had been established. No matter how outstanding Chi-Yu's performance was, it was useless. Shennong's abdication was imminent. For the stability of the human race, it was impossible to change the successor at the last minute. Fortunately, with Chi-Yu's talent, even if he couldn't become the human emperor, he was destined to become a strong person. Under his leadership, the otherworldly race's right to speak in the human race would also be increased correspondingly. Time passed bit by bit. In the blink of an eye, it was the 990,000th year of the Earth Emperor's calendar. It wouldn't be long before Shennong would abdicate. At this time, when the mutants saw that Xuanyuan's prestige was growing, they gradually gave up the idea of tripping him up. Instead, they focused all their attention on Chi-Yu, hoping that he would become the supreme realm to improve the status of the mutants in the human race. However, although the mutants had given up the idea of tripping Xianyuan, the myriad races behind them were unwilling to fail. In order to improve the status of the mutants, the myriad races had invested a lot of resources in the early stages to improve the strength of the mutants. Now, if the mutants gave up so easily, wouldn't the investment of the myriad races be wasted? Of course, they wouldn't give up just like that. Therefore, the myriad races gradually had other thoughts and began to sow discord between the mutants and the pure-blooded human race. The conflict between the mutants and the pure-blooded human race gradually became more and more obvious. This also caused the situation within the human race to become more and more tense. And all of this was seen by Feng Zichen on the Emperor's star. The petty actions of the myriad races couldn't be hidden from him. Not only that, even Shennong, who lived in seclusion, also saw all of this. However, neither Feng Zichen nor Shennong chose to interfere. These things would be left to Xianyuan to solve. Furthermore, wasn't this also a test for the otherworldly bloodline? If they were really loyal to the human race, they naturally wouldn't choose to join forces with the myriad races. They would directly refuse. On the contrary, if they agreed to join forces with the myriad races to deal with the pure-blooded human race, Then don't blame Feng Zichen for being ruthless. Thousands of years passed in the blink of an eye. Soon, 1,000,000 years had passed since Shennong ascended the throne. Today was the day Shennong ascended to the heavens and passed on the throne to Xianyuan. At the same time, this also signified that the 1,000,000-year period was up and Fuxi was about to abdicate. In the 1,000,000 year of the earthly sovereign calendar, Shennong had achieved great success and was about to ascend to the heavens. Therefore, he issued a decree to summon the patriarchs of all races. Under the witness of everyone, he passed the throne to Xianyuan. Xianyuan! From now on, I'll leave the human race to you. Don't disappoint me. In the imperial ancestral temple, Shennong solemnly handed the human emperor's seal, which symbolized the highest authority of the human race, to Xianyuan. Xianyuan Ding will not disappoint your majesty. I swear to lead the human race to glory. Xianyuan solemnly swore as he took the seal from Shennong. At this point, the transfer of power to the human race was complete. Shennong abdicated, and Xianyuan ascended the throne. Show your talents to the fullest. The human race is yours. I'll be leaving. After saying this, a huge crimson dragon appeared under Shennong's feet and carried him to the fire cloud cave. Your Majesty, don't be anxious. Wait for me. Just as Shennong was about to step into the void, experts from the human race and the myriad races walked out and followed Shennong. Haha, we're tired of staying in this primeval land. Today, we'll follow your Majesty to the heaven realm to take a look. Several Daluo Jinxian and hundreds of Peak Tai Jinxian chuckled as they caught up with Shennong and stood beside him. Good, good, good. I'll go too. I'll go too. Seeing that there were people following him, Shennong was very happy. After laughing a few times, he led everyone away on the dragon. We respectfully send your Majesty off. Seeing Shennong leave on the dragon, all living beings bowed. Humph. When Shennong's figure completely disappeared, the experts of the myriad races who had been smiling before no longer had to hide their true thoughts. After a cold snort, they all had cold faces to express their displeasure. Fellow Taoist Xianyuan, Poor Wei and the others still have important matters to attend to, so they won't stay in the human race for long. Please forgive Poor Wei and the others for taking their leave first. After Shennong left, the experts of the myriad races revealed their true colors. They didn't give Xianyuan the corresponding respect at all. Not only did they call him by his name, but they also directly left. They didn't take Xianyuan seriously at all. This was normal. Back then, when Shennong had just ascended the throne, not many people in the myriad races were convinced by him. They even wanted to snatch his position as the ruler of the myriad races. It wasn't until after the earth veins were sorted out that the myriad races were convinced and completely recognized Shennong's position. Now, Xianyuan was still far from Shennong, so the experts of the myriad races naturally didn't take him seriously. Xianyuan still had a long way to go if he wanted to stabilize his position as the ruler of the myriad races. After all, it was Shennong who had contributed to the myriad races, the primeval world, and all living beings, not Xianyuan. You, the elders of the human race, naturally couldn't stand the rudeness of the experts of the myriad races. They immediately wanted to scold them. Let them leave. What if something happens in front of the imperial ancestral temple? What a scandal! However, before they could speak, they heard Xianyuan say from the side. That's true. Today, as your Majesty said, let them leave for the time being. But we will still remember what happened today. In the future, we will definitely give them retribution. Although they were angry, they forcibly suppressed the anger in their hearts when they remembered that today was a day of great joy. However, what happened next made the faces of the elders of the human race completely darken. Your Majesty, we also have important matters to attend to, so we will take our leave first. Seeing the experts of the myriad races leave, some of the leaders of the mutants also left. This scene almost made the elders of the human race explode with anger. If they weren't worried about being seen as a joke by outsiders, they would have cursed out loud on the spot. But even so, the elders of the human race's faces became extremely ugly. It was fine if outsiders didn't give the emperor face. But their own people didn't give the emperor face. What were they trying to do? Did they deliberately want to be seen as a joke by outsiders? Even Xianyuan couldn't help but secretly clench his fists when he saw this scene. It was obvious that he was suppressing his anger. In fact, it wasn't just Xianyuan who was angry. Even Feng Zichen and Fushi, who were paying attention to this place, were also very angry. They were extremely disappointed with those mutant leaders who left. They were taking the initiative to cause trouble. They couldn't blame others for suppressing them. With the departure of the experts of the myriad races and some of the mutant leaders, no one was in the mood to continue the celebration. Therefore, this grand event that concerned the human race ended hastily. However, the impact it brought was enormous. After this incident, the conflict between the pure-blooded humans and the mutants was completely exposed. Moreover, after this incident, the dissatisfaction of the mutants towards the Emperor was also obvious. If it wasn't handled well, the human race would erupt into the greatest civil strife since its birth. Under this influence, the primitive world gradually became turbulent, especially the myriad races. They knew that the experts of the human race must hate them to the core and want to get rid of them as soon as possible. Therefore, they no longer had any scruples when they did things. They almost used all their resources to nurture Qiyu. When he grew up, he could contend against Xianyuan. Because of this, Qiyu's cultivation could be said to have advanced by leaps and bounds. He was about to become Daluo. No matter how the situation of the human race changed, it only affected the primitive world, but it couldn't affect the high and mighty heavenly realm. Thanks to the fortune of the world being easier this time, the heavenly realm, which still retained the innate qi, had completely become the center of the primitive world, the supreme world. The heavenly realm was the center of the primitive world. Almost all of the experts lived in the heavenly realm. His changes would affect the entire primitive world. At this moment, a major event was happening in the heavenly realm that could affect the entire primitive world. The celestial emperor was even easier. In the void, Shino hadn't arrived at the Red Cloud Cave yet. He was stopped by Fushi, who rushed over and pulled into the heavenly realm. Then, just like when Fushi ascended the throne, many powerful figures gathered in the heavenly court to crown Shino. At this point, Fushi abdicated and Shino ascended the throne. The world respected him as the Flame Emperor, and ancestral Magus Zhurong was the guardian. The Azure Emperor disappeared, and the Flame Emperor appeared. The destiny of the heavenly court changed as well. Boundless momentum gathered and blessed Feng Zichen, who was pushing all of this. Boom! With the destiny of heaven and earth on his body, Feng Zichen's aura soared again. Boundless mana surged out and surged in his body, causing his injuries to recover further. Soon. It's not far from the day when I become a primordial chaos. Silently restraining his aura, Feng Zichen slowly calmed the restless power in his body. 1/5 of the process of becoming a Dao had been completed. The Celestial Emperor was easier. To the world, it was a major event that involved the change of the destiny of heaven and earth. However, to all living beings, it wasn't a big deal. It didn't affect them at all. It was nothing more than a change of heaven. Anyway, at the level of all living beings, they couldn't come into contact with such a great figure. Therefore, the conspiracy of the myriad races against the human race was still going on. Not only that, under this conspiracy, there seemed to be other undercurrents surging. Under Feng Zichen's secret observation, he suddenly discovered that an extremely unfamiliar force had appeared. It was living in seclusion behind the scenes and constantly stirring up the relationship between the myriad races and the human race, trying to provoke a conflict between the two sides. Their methods were just like the demon sect back then. They secretly provoked a war between the three races to trigger the great calamity of the primordial world. The goal of the force behind the scenes was to trigger the great calamity of the primordial world. In the beginning, Feng Zichen thought that the demon sect saw that the primordial world was peaceful and continued to stir up trouble. But under his patient observation, he found that things were not like that at all. The force behind the scenes had nothing to do with the demon sect. Instead, it had some connection with the person who schemed against the girl back then. Without a doubt, this was a force that targeted the human race. However, what Feng Zichen didn't understand was, if they targeted the human race, they would target the human race. Why did they have the intention to trigger the great calamity of the primordial world? It was as if dealing with the human race was just a side effect. Their real goal was to provoke the human race to fight with the myriad races to break the primordial world. Good Lord! This force wanted to destroy the world. It was precisely because of this that Feng Zichen suddenly became interested in this force. He was not in a hurry to destroy it. Instead, he stared at them closely, looking forward to their next plan. Feng Zichen was very curious. Why did that force want to destroy the primordial world? Therefore, he wanted to cast a long line to catch a big fish and raise this force. Under the nurturing of the myriad races, the power of the variant human lineage could be said to have developed extremely quickly. Although Daluo Jingxian was not born, there were endless Tai experts. This also caused the ambition of the variant human lineage to gradually expand. However, reality was cruel. No matter how powerful the variant human lineage was, it could not compare to the countless years of foundation of the pure-blooded human race. The power of the variant human lineage was far from being able to compete with the pure-blooded human race. If they continued to develop like this, in theory, the variant human lineage would never surpass the pure-blooded human race in this calamity. However, at this moment, an unforeseen event happened, causing the scales of victory to gradually tilt towards the variant human lineage. On the Seven Stars continent of the East Sea, many clansmen rushed over to seek refuge with Chiyu. This was the holy land of the path of gods and demons, one of the foundations of the human race. There were countless experts there. With the support of this place, the variant human lineage could be said to have the ability to compete with the pure-blooded human race. As for why the humans on the Seven Stars continent would help the variant human lineage, it was because of their origin. The Seven Stars continent was located in the hinterland of the East Sea. The East Sea was the headquarters of the aquatic. Since the Seven Stars continent was located here, was it not normal for them to marry the dragons and aquatics? Therefore, the Seven Stars continent was also a variant human lineage. They belonged to the same lineage, so of course they had to advance and retreat together. Of course, this was only one of the reasons. More importantly, Feng Zichen had ordered them to seek refuge with the variant human lineage. Unlike the variant human race in the human race's territory, the humans on the Seven Stars continent were all loyal to Feng Zichen. They retained their ancient memories and were still bathed in Feng Zichen's glory. They even grew up listening to his legends. They practically regarded him as their religion. How could such a force betray Feng Zichen? They were the same as the sealed human Dao imperial court. They were absolutely loyal to Feng Zichen. It was also one of the greatest forces he controlled now. How could they refuse when Feng Zichen asked them to support the variant human lineage? Feng Zichen's action was to increase the variant human lineage's strength. At the same time, it was also his final test for the variant human lineage. With the help of the Seven Stars continent, the variant human lineage would have the ability to resist the pure-blooded human race. They would not need to borrow the power of the other races. Of course, if the variant human lineage continued to borrow the power of the other races at this time, their strength would surpass the pure-blooded human race in one fell swoop. However, in this way, Feng Zichen would be completely disappointed in them. When he attacked, there would be no mercy at all. The opportunity had been given to them. Whether they could seize it or not depended on their hearts. Chapter 6:18. In the end, the decision of the other folk. In the end, they still disappointed Feng Zichen. With the support of the Seven Stars continent and all the other races, the other folk gradually expanded, so much so that they started to have thoughts that they shouldn't have. They wanted to pull Xianyuan down from the throne. As soon as this thought appeared, it grew uncontrollably. Soon, it completely occupied the hearts of the other folk, and they started to take action. How did the Empress Princess disappear? Did Xianyuan do it on purpose? In order to understand his competitors, he set up the Empress Princess. The rumor that had been buried for a long time started to spread again in the great desolate world under the intentional propaganda of the variant humans. In an instant, rumors about Xianyuan spread throughout all the races. The other folk used this as an excuse to force Xianyuan to give an explanation. Otherwise, they would refuse to recognize Xuanyuan's legal status and not respect him as the emperor. In response, Xuanyuan's side was naturally furious, but the pure-blooded didn't want to fall out with him. Therefore, they first gave an explanation and used Shenong's words as evidence. Unfortunately, no matter how they explained, the other folk wouldn't listen. That's right, the other folk only wanted a reason to target Xianyuan so that they could have a good reason to attack and make their next move easier. In this way, why would they care about whether this matter was true or not? To them, in order to achieve their secret, even if the Empress Princess really appeared in front of everyone, the other folk would say that it was fake. It was used by Xianyuan to confuse the world. After the explanation failed, Xuanyuan's side understood the other party's intentions. They were clearly trying to usurp the throne. It could be said that everyone knew what they were thinking. Knowing that the other party was determined to rebel, Xianyuan didn't hold back. He immediately mobilized the army to destroy the other party's forces that had yet to form. However, Xuanyuan's actions were still too slow. No, to be precise, Xianyuan underestimated the determination of the other folk. In order to seize power, the other folk directly joined forces with all the other races. When Xianyuan attacked the other folk, the ones who stopped him were not the experts of the other folk, but the experts of all the other races. It was the battle with the masters of the 10,000 races that took up too much of Xuanyuan's time. As a result, he wasn't able to take action immediately and destroy the forces of the mutants. Otherwise, how could the mutants resist Xianyuan, who was blessed with the fortune of the human race? They would be easily destroyed by Xianyuan. Unfortunately, with the intervention of the experts of the 10,000 races, everything changed. Xuanyuan's advantage was completely gone. This delay gave Qi Yu time to prepare. He directly integrated all the inhuman forces and established the Jili tribe to fight against Xianyuan Yao Yao. The Jili division was completed. The human race's providence was immediately split into two. Almost half of the human fate flew out of Xuanyuan's body and into Qiu's. As a result, Xuanyuan's strength dropped drastically. At the same time, Qiu's strength skyrocketed, reaching a level where he could rival Xianyuan. In the situation, the tables were turned in an instant. The masters of the 10,000 clans helped. Although they managed to stop Xianyuan, their actions undoubtedly angered the masters of the human clan. As a result, some of the neutral forces completely sided with Xianyuan and worked together to deal with the Jili tribe. There were also some human experts who had been living in seclusion. After learning about this, they all came out of seclusion to help Xianyuan. Joining forces with the 10,000 races caused the Jili tribe to gradually become the enemy of the human clan. At this moment, some of the leaders of the mutants also realized that they had done something stupid. However, since things had already come to this, they had no way back. They could only brace themselves and continue forward. Defeating Xianyuan, was the only way for them to turn the situation around. History books were often written by the victors. As long as they defeated Xianyuan and obtained the supreme power of the human clan, wouldn't they be able to rewrite the merits and demerits? With this thought, the fighting spirit of the mutants became even stronger. As for Xuanyuan's side, because the Jili tribe had joined forces with the 10,000 races, they viewed them as traitors. They hated them to the bone and wanted to kill them as soon as possible. As a result, the civil war of the human clan broke out. This was an unfair war. From the beginning, this war was destined to be unfair. On Xuanyuan's side, only the pure-blooded humans supported him. As for the Jili tribe, other than the mutants, they also had the support of the 10,000 races. In fact, there was even a faint shadow of the Magi in the Jili tribe. One side was weak, and the other side had more people. The result was self-evident. On the other hand, Xuanyuan's side was being beaten back. It was also at this moment that Xuanyuan's reinforcements were finally about to enter the arena. The 12 golden immortals of Chan School had arrived. According to the agreement that everyone had made in the Purple Cloud Palace back then, the candidates for the 3 emperors and 5 emperors were decided by the human race. The candidates for the Imperial Preceptor were from the 3 sections. In order to show his importance to the 3 emperors, the Grand Pure One descended to the mortal world and personally taught Fuxi. Originally, after this, they should be disciples of Chan School of Jie School. They taught the 2 generations of human emperors respectively. However, under Feng Zichen's secret drive, the authority of the 3 emperors was strengthened and their status became higher. As a result, no one among the disciples of Jie School and Chan School was qualified to take in 2 human emperors as disciples. Arranging for disciples to become the imperial preceptor was to seek merit for them, not to send them to their deaths. Their fate was not strong enough, but they could not become the imperial preceptor. They would be devoured by the imperial purple qi and die. Therefore, the 3 sects could not find a candidate for the imperial preceptor. At that time, the 3 pure ones could not return to the primordial world because they were resisting the Chaos Fiend God. Otherwise, they would be qualified to take in the human emperor as their disciple. Helpless, the 3 pure ones had no choice but to change their strategy. They changed from taking in disciples to guiding them, just like how Xian Qing guided Shenong. In that case, although they did not have as much merit as becoming the imperial preceptor, it was better than nothing. The 12 golden immortals of Chan School came for merit. Putting aside the strength of the 12 disciples of the Heavenly Lord of primordial beginning, the Dharma treasures on them were good. Therefore, with the help of the 12 golden immortals and the power of their connate numinous treasures, Xuanyuan's side gradually gained the upper hand. However, the good times did not last long. Seeing that the situation had reversed, Qi Yu made up his mind and invited a large number of experts from the Magi to suppress the 12 golden immortals. Just like that, the 2 sides exchanged blows and the battlefield gradually fell into a stalemate. It was also at this moment that the hidden forces finally made their move. They pretended to be experts of the myriad races and suddenly attacked the 12 golden immortals, severely injuring them. The 12 golden immortals were severely injured and completely lost their combat strength. As a result, the strength of Xuanyuan's side was greatly reduced. Qi Yu took the opportunity to launch an attack. He broke through the front line in one fell swoop and advanced into the hinterland of the human race. For a moment, Xuanyuan's side was in danger. However, the changes in things were often not as they wished. Because of the heavy injuries of the 12 golden immortals, a hidden big shot of Chan School, the deputy sect master of Chan School, the ancient Taoist Randang. He was a big shot in the Sage-to-Be realm. Since others bullied the weak and dealt with the 12 golden immortals, Taoist Randang naturally had to find a way to get back at them. As the Sage-to-Be entered the scene, the situation changed again. Qi Yu's side gradually fell into a disadvantage. The words Sage-to-Be represented everything. This was the top combat strength of the primordial world, enough to turn the situation around. If nothing went wrong, Xianyuan and Taoist Randang would join forces and soon calm the internal strife of the human race. However, the person behind the scenes obviously did not want the battle to end just like that. Therefore, an unknown sage-to-be expert walked out and stalled Taoist Randang, buying some time for Qi Yu's side to catch their breath. Interesting. It's getting more and more interesting. Since that's the case, let me add fuel to the fire. Let's see what tricks you can play. On Ziwei Star, Feng Zichen saw that the situation of the battle was showing signs of expanding. Instead of stopping it, he secretly added fuel to the fire. With a thought, Feng Zichen issued a decree. Immediately, dozens of powerful auras erupted from the 5 connate races and rushed towards the ancestral land of the human race to support them. This was another ambush of Feng Zichen. Back then, seeing that the human race was no match for the demon race and was in danger of being exterminated, Feng Zichen immediately made a decision to send some of the humans into the 5 connate races to preserve a trace of the human race's bloodline. These humans were secretly nurtured by the 5 connate races to be the hidden foundation of the human race. However, the situation was critical now, so they had no choice but to appear in advance to reverse the situation. With these humans taking action, the 5 connate races would not sit idly by. They hurriedly sent some experts to follow them. With this help, the strength of Xuanyuan's side became stronger and stronger. However, Qi Yu's side also received strong reinforcements. Under the pressure, the 10,000 races had no choice but to use their own foundation to fight against Xuanyuan's side. At the same time, the power behind the scenes was also secretly involving the energy of Xuanyuan's side. But do you think that's the end? Seeing that this place was so lively, some people who had ulterior motives secretly joined in. For example, the demon sect. They provoked the various forces and forced them to join in the civil war of the human race, causing the range of the war to become wider and wider. Some ancient demon gods were unwilling to be left out. Under the persuasion of the demon sect, they joined the war. In order to help Qi Yu, the witch race was also dragged into the war. The forces in the sky did not dare to be left out. They sent people to the lower realm in an attempt to seek some merit. Chaos, it was all chaos. Now, the Xian sect, the demon sect, the witch race, the heavenly court, the 5 connate races, the ancient demon race, and so on, all the major forces of the primordial world had joined in the war, causing the situation to become more and more complicated. Before this, who would have thought that a mere civil war of the human race would evolve into a showdown between the major forces of the primordial world? It would be strange if no one was secretly controlling it. At this moment, almost all the great divinities, their gazes were focused on the human race. They nervously stared at the changes in the situation. They were afraid. This war had affected too many forces and experts. If it was not handled well, it would turn into a disaster that affected the entire primordial world. Therefore, they had to keep an eye on this war at all times to control the impact of the war within a certain range. The primordial world could not withstand the torment. The situation has developed to this point. The person behind the scenes should not be able to hold back and make a move. Let me see what your purpose is in provoking the great calamity of the primordial world. Apart from the crowd, Feng Zichen was also paying attention to the situation. He was waiting for the person behind the scenes to make a move. If he did not make a move, he would not have the chance to make a move when the outcome was decided. Boom! Just as Feng Zichen was waiting for the mastermind behind the scenes, a sudden change occurred in the field. 2 terrifying figures suddenly appeared in the void and charged towards Xianyuan and Qi Yu at the same time. Judging from their cultivation, they had already stepped into the half-primordial chaos realm. Seeing this, on the Emperor's star, Feng Zichen was about to save them. However, just as he was about to make a move, 4 mysterious figures suddenly appeared outside the boundless starry sky and charged towards the depths of the starry sky. Their targets, they were the 4 great ferocious beasts that had been sealed. Obviously, they had come to save the 4 great ferocious beasts. Fellow Taoists, it's been a long time. Retracting his hand that was about to save them, Feng Zichen smiled at the 4 people who were rushing over. These 4 people were not strangers. They were 4 of the 9 chaos demon gods that had fought against the incarnations of the saints back then. Feng Zichen had fought with them before, so he was naturally no stranger to them. In the face of Feng Zichen's greeting, the 4 chaos demon gods were all silent. They just quickly used their supernatural powers to try to save the 4 great ferocious beasts. Fighting 1 against 4, Feng Zichen did not dare to be careless. He carefully manipulated Pangu's divine power to deal with the 4 of them. At the same time, he also quietly released a trace of his mind to pay attention to the changes in the human battlefield. If they had the complete fate of the human race, Xian Yuan and Qi Yu would not be afraid of the sneak attack of the 2 half-primordial chaos existences. Unfortunately, they only had half of the fate of the human race. Therefore, under the sneak attack of the 2, although Xian Yuan and Qi Yu did not die, they were seriously injured. After failing their attack, the 2 did not stop. Instead, they used their supernatural powers and continued to charge forward. Another attack could kill Xian Yuan and Qi Yu on the spot. However, they did not have the chance. Seeing that the 2 of them were in danger, Fuxi and Shenong attacked at the same time. Each of them blocked an assassin and fought with them. It was also because the fate of the human race had not reached its peak. Otherwise, Fuxi and Shenong would definitely be able to unleash the combat strength of the primordial chaos realm and easily suppress the 2 of them. They would not be trapped in a bitter battle like they were now. You're courting death. The powerful beings who were watching the battle were shocked and angry when they saw that someone dared to make a move under their noses. Almost without hesitation, they grabbed at the 2 people who were fighting with Shenong and Fuxi. Fellow Taoists, please stop. Suddenly, a clear voice came from the void. It was like the sound of the Tao was trembling slightly. It deduced endless magical methods and shattered everyone's supernatural powers. Who is it? While everyone was puzzled, dozens of familiar and unfamiliar figures appeared in front of everyone. It was familiar. It was the Tao that everyone had heard somewhere. It was unfamiliar. It was the other party's expression. It was completely different from what they remembered. It was as if he was a different person. For them who had experienced the possession of the chaos demon gods, they naturally knew what this meant. Chapter 6:19. They had been possessed by the chaos fiend god. Endless years of bitter cultivation had turned into a wedding dress for them overnight. It was really sad. Fellow Taoists, let the poor Wei and the others release you. Without any superfluous words, the 2 forces engaged in the most intense life-and-death battle as soon as they met. Their fellow Taoists who had cultivated with them in the past could not even rest in peace after death. Their identities and bodies were replaced by the chaos fiend god, causing chaos in the untainted land. How could this group of great mediums tolerate it? In this battle, they did not seek to kill the chaos fiend god. At the very least, they wanted to destroy their bodies to release their former fellow Taoists. Rumble. With the entrance of the chaos fiend god and the great mediums, the scale of the battle became even greater. Terrifying power raged out, almost destroying everything. The void shattered layer by layer, and time was distorted. Even the rules of heaven and earth were collapsing one after another. The entire untainted land seemed to have fallen into the end of the world. An endless amount of destructive power gushed out from it. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Just as heaven and earth were about to sink, at the critical moment, the 12 shrines sitting on the untainted land suddenly trembled violently and emitted a bright light. Roar, roar, roar. Roar, roar, roar. 12 towering figures walked out of the 12 shrines and stood on the untainted land. They emitted endless majesty and jointly suppressed the untainted land. 12 Capital Heaven Divine Killing Formation. Rise. An ancient and mysterious Tao sound came slowly, as if it had crossed endless years and resounded in the untainted land. It lingered in everyone's ears for a long time. The 12 Capital Heaven Divine Killing Formation, which shocked the untainted land, finally appeared again. Sensing that the untainted land was in great danger, almost instinctively, the shadows of the ancestral sorcerers in the 12 shrines operated spontaneously and joined forces to set up the top Khanate formation of the untainted land, the 12 Capital Heaven Divine Killing Formation. Rumble. Under the power of the formation, the shadows of the 12 ancestral sorcerers slowly merged and gradually formed a great and sacred existence, the incarnation of Pangu. Without a doubt, this was the incarnation of Pangu at the primordial chaos level. A vast aura spread out, faintly resonating with heaven and earth. An inexplicable power appeared, making the rules of heaven and earth more active. Even the terrifying fluctuations raging in the untainted land were slightly restrained. Bang! As soon as Pangu's incarnation appeared in the world, he did not do anything. In the netherworld realm, the prehistoric geomancy map automatically recovered, broke through the void, crossed the realm, and flew into the hands of Pangu's incarnation. Suppress. Grabbing the prehistorical geomancy map, Pangu's incarnation shook and unfolded it. Immediately, an extremely vast and profound power surged out from the great desolate geomancy map. It whistled into the ground and turned into a hazy film of light, protecting the ground firmly. Rumble. After that, no matter how powerful and terrifying the shockwaves from the battle were, they were unable to shake the great desolate land in the slightest. It was also thanks to Feng Zichen's timely establishment of the 12 shrines. Otherwise, after this battle, no matter who won or lost, it would cause great damage to the untainted land. It was comparable to the apocalypse. After Feng Zichen's efforts, the changes in the Eldritch world line were getting bigger and bigger. Originally, according to the normal course of history, the battle between the liches and demons should be the largest battle in the history of the untainted land. However, as Feng Zichen continued to cause trouble, everything changed. After the battle between the liches and demons, the calamity of the Chaos Fiend God broke out first, followed by the calamity of the Khanate ferocious beasts, and then the calamity of the demon sect. Finally, the demon ancestor Rahu took action to cause chaos in the untainted land. The scale of each battle was larger and larger, and the range of experts involved was also increasing. First, it was a chaotic battle between half-step primordial chaos experts, and then it developed into a fierce battle between existences at the level of primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. In the end, it evolved into dozens of existences with the combat strength of primordial chaos, engaging in a life-and-death battle. It was really exciting. Right now, another battle that was not inferior to the scale of the battle between the liches and demons was taking place in the untainted land. Boom, boom, boom. Legendary existences fought in the depths of the void. Terrifying fluctuations erupted one after another, shaking the past, present, and future. As a result, the universe was out of order, and the heaven and earth were out of balance. Strange and unpredictable scenes appeared one after another in the untainted land, which was extremely shocking. The heaven and earth were bright and dim, and the laws were looming. Terrifying fluctuations spread between the heaven and earth, oppressing the minds of all living beings. It was unknown how much pressure it brought to them. If it were not for Pangu's incarnation doing its best to suppress the untainted land, preventing the land from sinking in the battle, it was unknown how many innocent creatures would have been affected by this battle and turned into ashes. As time passed, the battle gradually entered a white-hot state. Both sides could no longer control their strength, so all kinds of magical powers flew around. Even the heaven realm and the boundless starry sky were affected. Under such circumstances, Feng Zichen, who was beating the 4 chaos demon gods in the boundless starry sky, had to divert part of his strength to protect the heaven realm. The heaven realm had now become the center of the untainted land, and he could not let it be destroyed in this battle. However, diverting part of his strength to protect the heaven realm was also a kind of pressure for Feng Zichen. He was not the only one who had not fully recovered from the injuries left by the battle with the demon ancestor Rahu. Even the Zhoxing map and the small Mount Buzhou had not recovered. In addition, the 4 ferocious beasts were suppressed in the boundless starry sky, which also greatly dispersed the power of the god Pangu. Therefore, the power of the god Pangu was greatly weakened by the continuous dispersal of the power of the god in the boundless starry sky. As a result, when Feng Zichen faced the 4 chaos demon gods, he did not have an overwhelming advantage and could only barely maintain his undefeated position, with a trace of strength left to support other battlefields. At this point, if there was no power to break the balance, then both sides would be in a stalemate. At this time, it was completely a battle of attrition to see who could hold on first. The one who could not hold on first would be the loser. Right when the battle was in full swing, at the center of the untainted land and right below the heaven realm, the ruins of Mount Buzhou and the current location of the World Tree had suddenly welcomed an unexpected guest. This person's figure was blurry, and his entire body was coiled by a thin layer of chaotic energy, causing others to be unable to see his appearance clearly. Obviously, he'd put on a disguise to conceal his true origins. No one knew his name, his origins, or what sort of ability he'd utilized to actually allow him to stroll through the surroundings of the World Tree and the Last Days domain that the Heaven Dao had personally set up, and he wasn't affected in the slightest. TSK. This obviously showed that the ability of the Heaven Dao was truly capable. The Last Days domain that it set up was really something that no one could stop. How many waves has it been? All those years ago, the experts of the demon sect came and went as they pleased. Now, it seemed like this unknown existence was the same. The Last Days domain hadn't been of any use at all, and it seemed as if it didn't exist in the eyes of these experts. It was truly dangerous for him to protect the World Tree. The World Tree was so beautiful that everyone that saw it couldn't help but exclaim with admiration towards its greatness. They were unable to figure out how such a perfect life could exist in the world, and it was simply like a miracle. This was something that even this unknown existence was no exception to. Alas! This is the World Tree. What a shocking existence! He lightly stroked the striations on the World Tree as if he was stroking the most precious piece of art in the world, and he sighed with slight reluctance. Reluctance? There was no doubt about it. Based on this person's tone, it was obvious that he'd specially come here for the sake of harming the World Tree. What a pity! Such a great life is about to be destroyed at the hands of the poor Wei. If you want to blame someone, then blame yourself for being related to the safety of the untainted land. If you want to destroy the untainted land and establish the earth, fire, water, and wind once more, then you're your greatest weakness. So long as you're destroyed, then the heavens and the earth would be out of balance and combine once more. At that time, it would be the fortuitous encounter of the poor Wei. Looking at the World Tree, that person muttered to himself. Judging from his expression, he seemed to be explaining the reason for his actions to the World Tree, and also seemed to be convincing himself to make the final decision. Perhaps it was these mutterings that strengthened that person's determination. After he finished speaking, there was no longer any hesitation in his eyes. He took out a long black saber with determination and raised it towards the roots of the World Tree, ready to strike at any time. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As if sensing danger, the World Tree suddenly trembled violently, and its entire body lit up with clear light. Countless mysterious runes kept flowing on its body. Whoosh! The world tree swayed gently, sprinkling down endless clear light. Together with the mysterious runes on the tree, it formed a green light screen around it, firmly protecting itself. This green light screen emitted an extremely rich aura of life, and mysterious and complicated runes loomed on it, showing its profundity. Whoosh! Whoosh! Invisible waves emanated from the world tree, calming everything around it. Primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. The level of the world tree had long reached the level of primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. Although the world tree couldn't exert all its power because it was holding up the sky. Primordial chaos was primordial chaos, and it had the power to transcend everything. Now that the world tree had used all its strength to form the light screen, it definitely belonged to the primordial chaos level, and it had the power to contend with primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. Primordial chaos? What an enviable life! It's still underage, but it has the power of primordial chaos. If it reaches adulthood, what will happen? No wonder it's in existence at the same level as the Chaos Demon God. It's really terrifying. Sensing the waves emanating from the world tree, that person's expression couldn't help but become solemn. He unconsciously clenched the black saber in his hand and sighed at the world tree. However, although he was solemn, the means shown by the world tree obviously couldn't scare him. Since he had come here, he was naturally prepared. The situation in front of him was within his expectations, and he had already prepared for it. It would be really surprising if the world tree didn't resist. What a pity! If you were in a free state with my ability, I would definitely not be your mat. But now you're burdened by heaven and earth, and you can't exert even 1/10,000th of your strength. How can you resist me, whose strength has greatly increased? Looking at the world tree with slight pity, that person suddenly raised the black saber in his hand, raised it high above his head with both hands, and activated his power with all his strength. Rumble! An aura unique to a primordial treasure slowly emanated from the black saber in his hand. That black saber was a primordial treasure. No, to be precise, it was a broken chaos spiritual treasure. However, the level of this chaos spiritual treasure should have been very high before it was broken. So even if it was broken, it still had the power of a primordial treasure. Chi! A ray of strange black light lit up from the tip of the saber, and then spread to the entire saber. As if it was surrounded by black flames, the black saber burned, and a huge amount of heat radiated, distorting the air. Kill. When the power of the black saber had accumulated to the maximum, that person waved the saber in his hand, about to slash at the world tree. Rumble! The saber didn't move, but the momentum arrived first. A solemn murderous aura swept out, creating layers of ripples in the void, as if it wanted to destroy everything. Buzz buzz buzz, the invisible saber momentum burst out and hit the cyan light curtain around the world tree, creating layers of ripples and distorting it, as if it was about to collapse. Too powerful. Just the saber momentum alone was enough to make the cyan light curtain, which could withstand the attack of a primordial chaos expert, show signs of collapse. If the black saber really slashed down, the cyan light curtain wouldn't be able to withstand it. But now, the saints were far away in the sky. The great divinities were besieging the chaos demon gods. Feng Zichen was also being held back by the 4 chaos demon gods. At this moment, all the beings who could rescue the world tree were tied up and couldn't come to help. For a moment, the world tree was in danger. Break! The man made up his mind and waved the black saber in his hand. Suddenly, endless saber momentum burst out, turning into countless pitch-black saber lights, shattering the cyan light curtain around the world tree. This is the end of your tricks. So, destroy. After breaking the cyan light curtain, the man didn't stop at all. He held the black saber tightly with both hands, raised it above his head, and was about to swing it down again to completely cut off the world tree's life force. Fellow Taoist, please stop. However, at this moment, a clear voice suddenly came from the side, interrupting his actions. "Who is it?" When the man heard the words, he looked over and saw an otherworldly figure slowly walking out of the void and coming to stand in front of him. Boom! Boundless majesty burst out from the newcomer's body. It was supreme and domineering, with the power to sweep away everything. In an instant it shattered the sharp saber momentum all over the sky. "The World Tree is very important. I can't let you destroy it just like that," the newcomer said leisurely as he wiped away the opponent's momentum. "Ziwei Emperor Qi? It's you. Why are you here?" Chapter 620. After recognizing the identity of the person, the mysterious man could not hide the astonishment on his face, because it was impossible for the person to appear here. The leader of the 4 imperial gods, Emperor Zongtian Ziwei Polaris Supreme Yellow. Why can't it be me? Seeing the other party's expression, Feng Zichen said with some amusement. "No! Weren't you held back by the Chaos Demon God and unable to escape in the boundless starry sky? Why did you suddenly appear here? Forget it. That's not important. Anyway, you alone can't stop the poor Wei." After seeing Feng Zichen appear, the man was puzzled at first and seemed to be greatly shocked. But soon after, he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly relaxed. He said with a nonchalant expression, "Fellow Taoist, you're really confident. You and I are both half-step primordial chaos. Fellow Taoist, are you so confident that you can firmly suppress me?" Hearing the other party say this, Feng Zichen could not help but be a little amused. He was the 4 imperial gods. Although his realm was the same as the other parties, which was the peak of the sage to be, half-step primordial chaos. But his combat strength, with the support of the karmic position of heaven and earth, could reach the 3rd heaven of primordial chaos or even stronger. In this way, how could the other party, a half-step primordial chaos, be his opponent even if he had a connate cardinal treasure in hand? Therefore, in Feng Zichen's opinion, the other party's words were simply ridiculous. "Fellow Taoist Ziwei, although I don't know what means you used to come here, poor Wei, but I'm sure you must have paid a great price to come here. After all, there are still 4 primordial chaos demon gods in the boundless starry sky. Dealing with them must have taken a lot of your energy. I just don't know how much strength fellow Taoist Ziwei can exert in this state. What's more, you were all seriously injured when you fought demon ancestor Rahu that day. Now, I'm afraid you haven't recovered yet, right?" At this moment, the mysterious man seemed fearless. He was not afraid of Feng Zichen. In his heart, he had already determined that Feng Zichen's strength was far from his peak level. Not to mention the mysterious man, no one would think that Feng Zichen could exert all his strength in this state. Just as the mysterious man had said, the boundless starry sky was being attacked by the Chaos Demon God. Feng Zichen must have put all his energy there to prevent the 4 ferocious beasts from breaking out of the seal. The consequence of this was that Feng Zichen, who appeared here, would not be able to display his strength at his normal level. It would already be considered good if he could reach even 1/10,000th of his prime. After all, they were 4 chaos demon gods at the primordial chaos level, not 4 cabbages that could be found on the roadside. If he wanted to stop them, he would have to pay an unimaginable price. Moreover, he was still injured. Because of this, even though the mysterious man knew that Feng Zichen's strength was comparable to a primordial chaos expert, he still spoke arrogantly and did not take him seriously at all. He felt that the Feng Zichen in front of him was just an illusory body and did not have the strength to compete with him at all. But was the truth really as he thought? Oh? Is that really so? Since you think so, why don't you come forward and verify it yourself? You should know that you have to pay the price for looking down on me. Feng Zichen smiled gently and did not take the mysterious man's words seriously at all. He just invited him to verify it himself. He wanted to see if his strength was as he thought weak. Of course, he did not care. After all, the one who appeared here was Feng Zichen's real body, the real body. The one who stayed in the boundless starry sky was his incarnation. As early as when he found that someone was deliberately stirring up trouble in the untainted land, Feng Zichen knew that something was wrong. Someone wanted to start a catastrophe in the untainted land. After realizing this, although Feng Zichen did not know the purpose of the other party, he was very sure of one thing. If they wanted to destroy the untainted land, they were destined to have to go through the Tree of World. Therefore, after leaving an incarnation, Feng Zichen quietly left the boundless starry sky and hid inside the Tree of World. What happened later all confirmed Feng Zichen's guess. With the outbreak of a large-scale chaotic battle, the person behind the scenes came here and wanted to harm the Tree of World. That was why the current scene was happening. As for why the incarnation that was fighting with the 4 chaos demon gods in the boundless starry sky was so strong, of course, it was because of the power of the god Pangu. It was also because of this that Feng Zichen's performance in the boundless starry sky was so terrible. After all, his real body was not there. That's what I was thinking. The mysterious man did not talk nonsense. He waved the black long knife in his hand and slashed at Feng Zichen. Swoosh, the black saber radiance surged out, overbearing and carrying a majestic saber momentum. It was as if countless mountains were pressing down on Feng Zichen. Good knife technique. After praising in his heart, Feng Zichen used his fingers as a sword and pointed at the oncoming knife radiance. In an instant, endless brilliance erupted and countless stars evolved, forming a vast starry sky in front of Feng Zichen. It was extremely gorgeous. Rumble. The knife radiance was against the sword radiant. Terrifying power erupted and tore everything apart. Endless knife momentum and sword intent burst out in the void, constantly colliding and destroying each other. Everything was blurred and destroyed. Heaven and earth were vast, drowned by the sword intent and knife momentum. After a long time, the storm gradually subsided and the winner was decided. But how is this possible? How can you be so strong? After the blow, the Tau momentum was not as good as the sword intent. The mysterious man's figure holding the knife flew backward, his eyes full of disbelief. It shouldn't be. Why? Clearly, most of your strength is concentrated in the boundless starry sky to resist the 4 chaos demon gods. But why do you still have such powerful strength? Using the knife to support his injured body, the mysterious man could not believe the facts in front of him and muttered absent-mindedly. He was injured. Under the other party's casual blow. His full-strength blow was no match for the other party's casual blow. This undoubtedly meant that the other party was not in a weakened state as he had imagined. On the contrary, the other party was very strong. Judging from the fact that he could easily injure him, the other party's strength was not inferior to an ordinary primordial chaos expert. Sigh. Poor thing. What are the 4 emperors? The supreme beings between heaven and earth, the embodiment of the will of the primitive world. They manage the primitive world on behalf of the heavenly Tao and have supreme power and strength. Even the real primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian would not dare to say that he could defeat the 4 emperors in the primitive world, let alone you who have not become primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. On the opposite side, Feng Zichen sighed with pity and said to the mysterious man. Overconfident. He was talking about the other party. Defeating the other party with one blow was nothing to him. It was a normal thing. After all, he had the strength of primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. And the other party was only an ant at the half-step primordial chaos level. If it were not for the innate treasure in his hand, he would have been seriously injured by that blow. He would not have had the chance to talk to Feng Zichen. Primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian? Poor Wei was careless. I didn't expect that fellow Taoist's trump card was much more than poor Wei imagined. Even in the face of 4 primordial chaos demon gods, you still have the strength to defeat poor Wei. With a bitter smile, the mysterious man said with difficulty. He had miscalculated, but it was not his fault. Who would have thought that great Emperor Ziwei was so powerful that he still had the strength of primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian while facing 4 primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian? He was ridiculously strong. Fellow Taoist, now that things have come to this, can you tell me where you came from? After sealing the surrounding space and completely blocking the escape route of the mysterious man, Feng Zichen walked forward and asked softly. He was really curious. These days, even primordial chaos demon gods and demon sects had given up on destroying the untainted world. The mysterious man who suddenly appeared in front of him did not seem to be a primordial chaos demon god. Instead, he was Gao Zhen of Xianmen. Why would he have the idea of destroying the untainted world? To be honest, fellow Taoist's aura is extremely pure. It doesn't seem like you have been possessed by a primordial chaos demon god. Why would you suddenly have such a rebellious idea of destroying the untainted world? Fellow Taoist, aren't you ashamed of the teachings of the Tao ancestor? In front of the mysterious man, Feng Zichen asked curiously. Ha! What do you know? Poor Wei wants to destroy the untainted world. Naturally, she wants to create an opportunity for poor Wei. With a sad smile, the mysterious man said in a low voice, Back then, when the untainted world was just formed, 9 Hongmeng purple qi were born between heaven and earth. 7 of them were obtained by the Tao ancestor and became the 7 saints today. As for the remaining 2 Hongmeng purple qi, one of them escaped from the world and completely disappeared. The other one blended into the untainted world to become the foundation of heaven and earth. Poor Wei said so. I think you should understand what I mean. As if he had completely given up hope, the mysterious man frankly stated his purpose. Hiss, fellow Taoist, what a good idea! After listening to the mysterious man's explanation, Feng Zichen could not help but secretly click his tongue. Destroying the untainted world to extract the Hongmeng purple qi. How should he describe this method? There was really a slight possibility of becoming a saint. Destroying the untainted world, although there was a great karma and great karma, once one became a saint, all of this would not be a problem. Saints were immortal and indestructible. It was not a joke. Even if one carried an enormous amount of karma and great karma, it could be slowly repaid. After all, saints had plenty of time. However, this wasn't the reason for the mysterious man to destroy the untainted world, nor was it the reason for the mysterious man to join forces with the Chaos Fiend God. Right. That's right. That mysterious man. He had absolutely joined forces with the Chaos Fiend God. Otherwise, how could it be such a coincidence? Just when he wanted to destroy the untainted world, a large group of Chaos Fiend gods appeared and helped him restrain the energy of the experts. All of this, there was absolutely a Chaos Fiend god that was interfering. Come. Let me see who you are. Feng Zichen stretched out his hand and grabbed towards the mysterious man. He intended to tear apart the mysterious man's disguise and see his true appearance. A layer of faint, chaotic energy coiled around the mysterious man. It was this layer of chaotic energy that isolated him from everything, causing him to be independent of the heavens and the earth, and even the Heaven Tao was unable to notice him. Thus, he was able to pass through the last day's domain safely. Similarly, it was because of this layer of chaotic energy that no one was able to discern his origins. Huff huff, Feng Zichen stretched out his palm, and it seemed as if he'd grabbed the entire heavens and the earth. Peerless energy emanated from him, squeezed space, and completely restrained the mysterious man. Break! Feng Zichen exerted his strength in secret and was about to tear apart the disguise on the mysterious man. However, at this moment, An unexpected event occurred. The black saber in the mysterious man's hand suddenly emanated dazzling brilliance, and then boundless energy surged out from within it and forcefully blasted Feng Zichen's restraints away. "Who is it?" With a command in his heart, Feng Zichen withdrew the Hongmeng Daozhong, and he froze the space here before carefully sizing up the surroundings. Swoosh! Right at the instant Feng Zichen withdrew the Hongmeng Daozhong, the black saber tore through the sky, and boundless saber might erupted as it slashed down fiercely at him. Clang! The Hongmeng Daozhong shook lightly, and then it directly moved horizontally before Feng Zichen and collided with the black saber. Bang! After one blow, the black saber was directly knocked away by the Hongmeng Daozhong and fell into the depths of the void. Suppress! At this moment, Feng Zichen shouted and manipulated the Hongmeng Daozhong into the depths of the void, completely suppressing the black saber. In the void, the mysterious man who suddenly appeared tried to retrieve the black saber, but under the suppression of the Hongmeng Daozhong, he could not recall it no matter what he did. For a moment, he could not help but feel a little anxious. What a good trick! Accompanied by an embarrassed voice, another mysterious figure walked out of the void. However, his strength was undoubtedly a level higher than the mysterious man who was suppressed by Feng Zichen. He had already entered the level of primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. Chaos Demon God! You are the Chaos Demon God. I remember you. You were one of the 9 Chaos Demon Gods who fought against the incarnations of the sages. So, you are the one he is relying on? Feng Zichen glanced coldly at the mysterious man and said indifferently, "Yes, it is me. With me here, you can't touch him." The Chaos Demon God took a step forward and said, What a joke! Do you think you can do it alone?" With a disdainful laugh, Feng Zichen grabbed the Hongmeng Daozhong and was about to suppress the Chaos Demon God together with the mysterious man from before. What an arrogant junior! He is really arrogant! Since he alone is not enough, how about adding us? While they were talking, another 4 Chaos Demon Gods walked out of the void. Including the previous one, there were now 5 Chaos Demon Gods standing in front of Feng Zichen. In addition to the 4 Chaos Demon Gods in the boundless starry sky, the 9 primordial Chaos Demon Gods who fought against the incarnations of the sages had all appeared. They all attacked Feng Zichen at the same time. 1 against 9. 5 Chaos Demon Gods? They are indeed powerful. But not enough. Chapter 621. Under the Tree of World, Feng Zichen was facing the 5 Chaos Demon Gods at the primordial chaos level. Instead of showing any fear, he was unusually arrogant. He pointed at the Chaos Demon Gods with one hand and said that they were no match for him. He was extremely arrogant and did not take them seriously at all. It was as if he was not facing the 5 high and mighty Chaos Demon Gods, but 5 Tom, Dick, and Harry. When such arrogant words reached the ears of the 5 Chaos Demon Gods, they were so angry that they were speechless. I have been in the chaos for many years, but I have never seen such an arrogant junior like you. Kid, let me see what you can do. Let me see what gives you the confidence to look down on the 5 of us. After a long time, the Chaos Demon Gods finally calmed down. They were angry and directly attacked Feng Zichen. Rumble! With a thought from the demon god of chaos, heaven and earth changed accordingly. The great path appeared, the Dharma was faintly discernible, and endless visions appeared, evolving into all kinds of mysterious superpowers. They blasted toward Feng Zichen with overwhelming force. Boom! It was as if the sea of stars had exploded and the world had collapsed. Dazzling light burst out and almost drowned everything. Heaven and earth lost their color, and only a terrifying power swept across everything as if it was going to destroy the past, present, and future. Come on then. However, Feng Zichen was not afraid at all. Hongmeng Daozhong die. Feng Zichen grabbed the Hongmeng Daozhong and slammed it toward the superpowers that were coming toward him. Clang! The sound of the bell was faint and boundless. It was like the sound of the Great Path and contained supreme power. It had the ability to destroy all Dharma and superpowers. Rumble! Endless sound waves burst out and directly destroyed everything. In an instant, everything ceased to exist. Time, space, Great Path, and Dharma. At this moment, all of them lost their meaning. All that could be seen was the boundless aura of Hongmeng. Boom! The chi of Hongmeng surged and surged like a raging ocean. Boundless waves surged violently toward the 5 chaotic demon gods, attempting to drown them. Wherever the Hongmeng chi passed, the divine powers of the 5 chaotic demon gods were submerged, devoured, and became a part of the Hongmeng chi, making the Hongmeng chi even more powerful. Not good. It's Hongmeng's chi. Run. Seeing the ocean-like Hongmeng aura surging toward them in a more powerful manner after devouring their superpowers, the 5 chaos demon gods' expressions changed drastically. At this moment, they couldn't care less about their reputation. Before the aura of Hongmeng rushed over, they hurriedly hid in all directions. Boom, 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 the aura of Hongmeng was vast and mighty. It wreaked havoc in the void for a long time before it gradually subsided. As the aura of Hongmeng retreated, everything around them changed. The void was gone. Even the last day's domain that the heavenly Tao had specially set up to protect the Tree of World was completely assimilated by the surging aura of Hongmeng. After a long time, the Tree of World once again appeared in front of everyone in the primordial world. A huge divine tree stood between heaven and earth like a pillar of heaven and earth, holding up heaven and earth. Great and shocking, the sudden change completely alarmed the great divine powers and the chaos demon gods who were fighting on the other side. At this moment, they seemed to be shocked by the greatness of the Tree of World. They simultaneously stopped what they were doing and temporarily stopped fighting. The Tree of World? Is this your real goal? No wonder you guys were so crazy and reckless when you attacked. It turns out that your goal was to destroy the great desolate world. The great divine powers weren't fools. After seeing the Tree of World and thinking of the strange actions of the Chaos Demon Gods, they naturally understood the other party's true intentions. What a good move! If His Majesty Ziwei hadn't been more skillful and ambushed under the Tree of World in advance, the primordial world would have been in danger today. Thinking of this, everyone couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. If great Emperor Ziwei hadn't been there, the consequences would have been unimaginable. After figuring this out, the powerful divines began to have misgivings and stopped fighting with the chaos demonic god. Instead, they began to confront him. They couldn't fight anymore. If they were careless, the aftermath of the battle would exceed the limit that Pangu's incarnation could withstand. Then, the primordial world would really be in danger. The great divine powers were worried about the primordial world and didn't want to continue fighting. As for the chaos demon gods, they were worried about the changes at the Tree of World and chose to wait and see. For a moment, both sides reached a strange consensus. They looked at the Tree of World together. Cough, cough, cough. Accompanied by a series of violent coughs, the 5 chaos demon gods crawled out of the void in tattered clothes. Their battered figures no longer had a trace of their previous arrogance. Junior, I have underestimated you. You have mastered the power of Hongmeng. How amazing! However, do you think you can defeat us like this? You should know that there are 5 of us. But you're alone. Are you really that confident to fight against 5 of us? Perhaps it was because he had been defeated by a junior and lost face, but the Chaos Demon God's words were inevitably tinged with shame and anger. However, in addition to shame and anger, there was also some greed in the Chaos Demon God's tone. That was the Chi of Hongmeng, the legendary power that was comparable to the power of the Great Path. If they could master it, then perhaps they would be able to rely on it to attain a realm comparable to Pangu or even surpass Pangu and attain an unprecedented realm of the Great Path. When they thought up to here, the Chaos Demon gods were excited to the point their bodies trembled, and their gazes towards Feng Zichen grew even more greedy. If it wasn't for them being afraid of his formidable strength, they would have probably pounced over directly and seized the Hongmeng Daozhong. Can you do it or not? Didn't all of you try it earlier? Your current attitude is the most powerful answer I can give you. Feng Zichen didn't take the threat of the Chaos Demon gods seriously at all. The reason he dared to be so arrogant was naturally because he was extremely confident that he could easily suppress the 5 Chaos Demon gods. Especially since the last day's domain had vanished, Feng Zichen was even more confident. Feng Zichen's words almost infuriated the Chaos Demon gods, and they wished for nothing more than to tear Feng Zichen apart on the spot. However, they didn't dare attack rashly out of consideration for the Hongmeng Daozhong, and they could only forcefully suppress the flames of rage in their hearts. The aggrievance in their hearts was obvious. That aggrieved expression of wanting to attack yet not daring to attack could be said to be extremely brilliant. Very good. I hope you'll be able to maintain this arrogance in the future. In the end, the Chaos Demon God seemed to be unwilling to give up for the sake of saving face, and he spoke ruthlessly. Feng Zichen displayed extreme disdain towards this. The Chaos Demon God, who was already furious, was completely unable to suppress the flames of rage in his heart after being provoked by Feng Zichen. They'd broken through his defenses. Bastard! Kill! The Chaos Demon God was furious to the extreme, and he attacked with all his might towards Feng Zichen. Without a sound, a giant hand reached down. In an instant, the entire world turned dark because the hand was so huge that it covered the entire sky, squeezed the void, and covered the land where the Tree of World was located. The sect master attacked with one hand covering the sky. A large hand surrounded by chaotic demonic aura covered everything, turning day into night. It was boundless. He wanted to grab the Tree of World and freeze time. The river of time trembled and stopped for him. Everything withered. The boundless starry sky was cold and silent. Everything trembled under this hand. Boom! The order of heaven and earth collapsed, and the rules dissipated. Only a black hand reached into this world, and became the only one. Behind this large hand were 5 overbearing demonic shadows. Their bodies filled the entire sky, and they exuded a terrifying aura. Kill! The 5 of them shouted in unison and launched their strongest attack towards Feng Zichen together. Boom! In an instant, infinite laws appeared and filled the sky with boundless power. As if the sky was falling, they pressed down on Feng Zichen. Good timing! Feng Zichen was fearless. In the face of such a powerful attack, he still dared to face it head-on. At this moment, he had invincible confidence. Even if he had the chance to interrupt the other party's magical power and prevent the attack from taking shape. But he didn't do so. Instead, he gave the other party enough time to form this unimaginable attack. Feng Zichen wanted to defeat the Chaos Fiend God in his strongest state to shatter their pride and confidence. And all of this confidence came from his trump card that was beyond imagination. Boom! When the Chaos Fiend God's magical power was fully formed, it pressed down on him. Feng Zichen moved. He punched out. The fist mark that illuminated the past, present, and future rose up, roaring and resplendent. There was a loud boom. His fist mark pierced through time and space and collided with the majestic hand of murderous aura. The next moment, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Immortals cried and demons howled. All kinds of strange phenomena appeared, shining in the primordial world and shaking the universe. Bang! After the ultimate move, heaven and earth froze for a moment. Then, there was an earth-shattering fluctuation, and endless brilliance bloomed. The result was, the Chaos Fiend God was no match for Feng Zichen's power. The huge black hand of murderous aura was shattered by his fist mark and exploded in the void. The murderous aura of chaos fell from the void like rain. It was extremely shocking. Of course, the shock was not without a price. If the murderous aura of chaos fell into the primordial world, it would inevitably cause an extremely bad effect and give birth to all kinds of strange things. Clatter! At the critical moment, Feng Zichen's body suddenly emitted a brilliant brilliance. Mysterious ripples spread from his body and turned into a bright rain of light. It spread toward the primordial world and met the murderous aura of chaos. Sizzle! No one knew where the light rain came from. It seemed to be the nemesis of the murderous aura of chaos. As soon as it met, it cancelled each other out. Soon, the murderous aura of chaos disappeared under the light rain. However, the brilliance on Feng Zichen's body did not dim. Instead, it became brighter. At the same time, the ripples under his feet became more mysterious. Endless mysterious runes appeared and disappeared. Like the great Tao, they spread toward the Chaos Fiend God. Set off by the mysterious brilliance, Feng Zichen's figure became more and more ethereal. His whole body emitted a mysterious aura, as if he was the way of heaven. Rumble! The fist mark was bright and penetrated everything. After breaking the murderous aura hand, it hit the Chaos Fiend God. Puff! After the punch, bright divine blood splashed and fell into the primordial world, turning into a big river. With just one blow, the Chaos Fiend God was injured. Way of heaven! So, this is why you are so confident? The indelible way injury spread in his body, causing the aura of the Chaos Fiend God to weaken. At this time, they finally understood why Feng Zichen was so arrogant. That was way of heaven. With just Feng Zichen's strength, he would definitely not be able to resist the 5 of them. However, with the way of heaven, even if 50 of them joined forces, they would not be a match for Feng Zichen. With the support of the way of heaven, Feng Zichen easily obtained the power to defeat the 5 of them. Haha! Don't you think it's a little too late to understand now? Feng Zichen laughed and said. He did not know what these Chaos Fiend gods were thinking. They actually dared to touch the World Tree at this time. How ridiculous! Back then, the demon ancestor Rahu dared to attack the World Tree because the way of heaven was not in the primordial world. But now, with the retreat of the Chaos Fiend gods, the way of heaven had returned to the primordial world. Attacking the World Tree at this time, was the way of heaven really a vegetarian? Previously, they might have been able to hide from the way of heaven's perception with various methods. However, with the disappearance of the last day's domain, how could the way of heaven not notice that there was a problem with the World Tree? It would definitely come here personally. At that time, under the gaze of the way of heaven, no matter how miraculous the concealment technique was, it would lose its effect. Earlier, Feng Zichen had utilized the Hongmeng Daozhong to destroy the last day's domain for the sake of drawing the attention of the way of heaven, so that everyone would be completely exposed before the way of heaven. Just like that. On what basis could they be so arrogant? The facts were just as Feng Zichen had expected. After it saw the Chaos Fiend gods intend to destroy the World Tree, the way of heaven was extremely furious. It immediately used Feng Zichen to teach the Chaos Fiend gods a lesson. This was precisely the reason why Feng Zichen was able to defeat the 5 Chaos Fiend gods. The energy of the way of heaven really is formidable. As expected of a special existence that inherited a portion of the strength of us 3,000 Chaos Fiend gods. You've won this time. But next time you won't be so lucky. They were clearly aware that they had no chance of winning after the appearance of the way of heaven, so the Chaos Fiend gods didn't hesitate and immediately intended to leave. However, they'd finally encountered an opportunity to annihilate the Chaos Fiend gods with great difficulty, so how could Feng Zichen allow them to do as they wished? Suppress. With a command in his heart, Feng Zichen mobilized the energy of the way of heaven and intended to suppress the Chaos Fiend gods. Today, no matter what, He had to kill all of them and deal with a great calamity in the primordial world. However, the Chaos Fiend gods were obviously much smarter than he'd imagined. When they noticed that the situation was bad, the Chaos Fiend gods suddenly made a shocking move. The Chaos Demonic God was summoning the Chaos Will. This was the most powerful life-saving means given to the Chaos Demon gods by the will of Chaos. The more Chaos Demon gods there were, the stronger the power they could summon would be. If 3,000 Chaos Fiend Celestials were to gather, they could even stand shoulder to shoulder with the Great Tao. At this moment, in order to deal with Feng Zichen, the 5 Chaos Demon gods joined forces and borrowed an extremely strong power from the Chaos Will. This power was strong enough to destroy everything. Of course, that was under normal circumstances. After all, this place was the untainted land and was protected by the great god Pangu. Any external power would be weakened by the great god Pangu after entering the untainted land. In other words, the power that the 5 Chaos Demon gods borrowed from the Chaos Will might be strong enough at the beginning, but after entering the untainted land, it would be good if they could retain 1% of their power. However, the extreme sublimation of power in an instant was enough to catch Feng Zichen off guard and cause some flaws in his blockade. After the power of the Chaos Will descended, the strength of the 5 Chaos Demon gods soared countless times in an instant. Rumble! Unparalleled power exploded, and the furnace of heavenly Tao shattered, revealing an indomitable figure. Violent power poured out of his body and swept everything, shattering all the means that Feng Zichen used to seal time and space. Go! Almost without hesitation, the 5 Chaos Demon gods directly fled to the chaos beyond the sky after breaking Feng Zichen's blockade. Fight. It was impossible to fight, because no matter what, they could not win. In the untainted land, the way of heaven represented invincibility. No one or anything could compete with the way of heaven. Even the Chaos Demon gods were no exception. And it was because of this that the Chaos Demon gods fled to the chaos beyond the sky without looking back after breaking Feng Zichen's blockade. The gap was too big. Even if they were supported by the power of the Chaos Will, it was still the same. Now, the reason why the Chaos Demon gods could escape was that their strength had increased too quickly and did not give Feng Zichen any time to react. This gave them a chance to escape. If they delayed for a while and waited for Feng Zichen to react, it would be difficult for them to escape under the power of the way of heaven. Want to leave? Stay! After a moment of astonishment, Feng Zichen snapped out of his daze. Seeing that the Chaos Demon Celestial was about to escape, he couldn't care about anything else. He summoned the primordial Chaos Tao Bell and blasted it at the Chaos Demon Celestial. Dang, the melodious sound of the bell rang. It was like the funeral sound of ancient times. It set off purple waves. It destroyed all laws and destroyed everything. At this moment, under the activation of the power of the way of heaven, the power of Hongmeng Daozhong was fully displayed by Feng Zichen. In an instant, an endless amount of primordial qi appeared. At this moment, the entire world turned purple. Everything was drowned out and could no longer be seen. It was a vast expanse. When everything was over, Hongmeng Daozhong retracted the Hongmeng qi. The scene that appeared in front of him was shocking. Time, void, great Tao, law, everything no longer existed. It had completely turned into a state of nothingness. Of course, the traces of the Chaos Demon gods had also disappeared without a trace. No one knew if they had escaped or if they had been swallowed by the Hongmeng qi. So powerful, even Feng Zichen was shocked by the scene in front of him. Since Hongmeng Daozhong had been promoted to a Khanate Cardinal Treasure, this was the first time he had fully activated his power. It was indeed shocking. It could be said to be ridiculously powerful. The space that had been drowned by the Hongmeng Qi had completely turned into a state of nothingness. It could not even be repaired. One could see, after the Hongmeng Qi disappeared, the power of heaven and earth tried to repair the broken void. However, something shocking happened. No matter how powerful the power of heaven and earth was, when it came into contact with the broken void, it would all be assimilated and turned into a state of nothingness. Hongmeng Daozhong's attack had almost caused permanent damage to the primordial world. It could not be healed. It was too powerful. But this is good as well. After he recovered from his initial shock, Feng Zichen spoke in a slightly relaxed manner. Even though Hongmeng Daozhong's attack had caused permanent damage to the primordial world, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. After all, this was where the world tree resided. The space here had completely transformed into a state of nothingness, and it could be said to have provided a natural layer of defense for the world tree. Even the energy of heaven and earth would be assimilated by it, let alone experts with great divine abilities. Every single one of them would probably die. With such a force protecting the world tree, it was simply countless times stronger than the last day's domain. Even though it wasn't completely safe, it was probably very difficult for a situation like this to occur. With a plan in his heart, Feng Zichen stopped paying attention to the broken void, and he converged his attention onto Hongmeng Daozhong instead. As for the broken void, he allowed it to exist to deter those with ulterior motive. Tisk tsk tsk. This group of Chaos Fiend Celestials really fled quickly. Feng Zichen couldn't help but speak with slight disappointment as he glanced at the interior of Hongmeng Daozhong. There, a ball of quintessence of the heavens and the earth was floating there silently while emanating boundless profundity. It was the quintessence of the heavens and the earth that the 5 Chaos Fiend Celestials had transformed into. Unfortunately, it wasn't complete, and it was only around half of it. Earlier, even though Feng Zichen's reaction was extremely swift, the Chaos Fiend Celestials had still taken the initiative in the end. So, when Feng Zichen made a move, he was half a step too late, and he wasn't able to kill all of them. However, he wasn't completely without gains. Hongmeng Daozhong's attack had forcefully severed the bodies of the Chaos Fiend Celestials, and it had forcefully left behind half of their quintessence. In other words, even though the Chaos Fiend Celestials hadn't perished, their strength had been directly reduced by around half, and it would take an unknown amount of time and price to fully recover. It's not completely without gains. At the very least, this quintessence is enough for Hongmeng Daozhong to improve by a small step again. With a thought, Feng Zichen directly activated Hongmeng Daozhong to devour the quintessence of the heavens and the earth. Currently, Hongmeng Daozhong was only a lower-grade innate true treasure. Presumably, after devouring the quintessence of the heavens and the earth, it would definitely improve by another level and become a middle-grade innate true treasure. A mere lower-grade innate true treasure already had such powerful power. What would it be like when it was upgraded to a middle-grade innate true treasure? Feng Zichen was looking forward to it. At this very moment, don't you have anything to say? After putting away Hongmeng Daozhong, Feng Zichen suddenly spoke to the void beside him. Ha ha! As expected, I can't hide it from you. With a chuckle, a figure quietly emerged from the void. It was the mysterious man who wanted to destroy the Tree of World. Previously, although the Chaos Demon Celestial had come to save him, in fact, he had come to save the innate true treasure in his hands. Saving him was just a matter of convenience. However, as the situation deteriorated rapidly, the Chaos Demon Celestial could not even protect himself, let alone save him. Therefore, as the war broke out, the Chaos Demon Celestial could not care about the mysterious man at all. Logically speaking, without the protection of the Chaos Demon Celestial, the mysterious man should have died in the aftermath of the battle between Feng Zichen and the Chaos Demon Celestial. After all, a battle between Origin Immortals was far beyond the reach of a half-step Origin Immortal. However, he did not expect the mysterious man to use some unknown means to attach himself to the Tree of World. Therefore, not only did he survive the aftermath of the battle, but he also survived until the end. If not for the fact that Feng Zichen was the master of the Tree of World and had sufficient perception of him, he would have been fooled by him and escaped. However, the mysterious man was unlucky to have dared to play tricks on the Tree of World right under Feng Zichen's nose. Didn't he just run right into the muzzle of the gun? I really don't understand. Is the temptation of becoming a saint so great? How could it cause you to fall so low? You must know that with your talent, fellow Taoist, you'll be able to ascend to the supreme Origin Tao realm one day. Why do you have to commit such evil acts for the elusive position of a saint? Looking at the mysterious man in front of him, Feng Zichen lamented bitterly. With his eyesight, he could naturally see that the mysterious man had not been possessed by the Chaos Demon Celestial. That was why Feng Zichen was puzzled. To be able to reach half-step Origin Immortal through hard work alone was proof of his great talent. At the very least, it would not be difficult for him to become a Chaos Daluo Jinxian. Then what was the reason for such a promising figure to be willing to risk universal condemnation and work with the Chaos Demon Celestial to destroy the primordial world for the sake of a position restricted by the heavenly Tao? Wouldn't it be great to be an unrestrained Chaos Daluo Jinxian? Haha. What do you know, fellow Taoist? It's not difficult for the poor way to reach Origin Immortal, but what about the realms above that? There are 12 levels of Origin Immortal, and each level is like ascending to the heavens. If she only relies on hard work, I'm afraid the poor way will never reach the peak of Origin Immortal in her lifetime, let alone the infinite Tao realm. That's why the poor way needs a position of saint. As long as she becomes a saint, with the help of the heavenly Tao, the poor way will have a chance to set foot in the infinite Tao realm and the more mysterious realms above it, let alone the peak of Origin Immortal. Do you understand now, fellow Taoist? The mysterious man seemed to have thought of the future prospects and spoke with some fervor. Hearing this, Feng Zichen was a little speechless. What this person said might not be unreasonable. Although becoming a saint had all kinds of inconveniences, there were more benefits. Just as the mysterious man had said, with the help of the heavenly Tao, it was easier for a saint to reach a higher realm than a primordial Daluo Jinxian. If not for this, how could the 3 pure ones and the others be willing to become saints and be manipulated by the heavenly Tao? Obviously. That was because the benefits of becoming a saint were far greater than the price he had to pay. But this was not the reason why he betrayed the primordial world. If it was for strength, if he could betray the primordial world, then this world was not far from destruction. Therefore, this person's actions could not be tolerated. Moreover, this person thought, wasn't it a little too much? Now, he had not even reached primordial chaos, and he was already thinking about higher realms. Wasn't he thinking too much? The most taboo thing about cultivation was to bite off more than one could chew. This person must have been fooled by the Chaos Demon God. Otherwise, why would he think so much for no reason? He had endured hundreds of millions of years of bitter cultivation, and now he suddenly betrayed the primordial world. Feng Zichen did not believe that no one had instigated it. But these were not important anymore. No matter what the reason was, since he dared to betray the primordial world, there was no reason for him to continue existing. Chapter 623. Fellow Taoist, now that things have come to this, let me reveal your true face. As he spoke, Feng Zichen stretched out his hand and grabbed the mysterious man. He was about to break his disguise and completely erase his existence. However, seeing that Feng Zichen's magical power was about to reach him, the mysterious man suddenly smiled strangely. Then, his body collapsed. Like smoke, in the blink of an eye, he disappeared from the world. Ha ha! Fellow Taoist Ziwei, you have won this round, but the contest between us is not over yet. Next time, I hope you are still so confident. The wisps of smoke dissipated, and there was no trace of the mysterious man. Only the faint sound of Tao kept echoing in the air, as a trace of the mysterious man's existence. Self-Taoification? You are quite decisive. However, do you think I can't find you like this? How ridiculous! Although Feng Zichen was a little shocked by the disappearance of the mysterious man, he was not too surprised. As a great magician in the ancient times, how could he be suppressed so easily? He must have countless trump cards. Taoification. It meant returning to heaven and earth. Under normal circumstances, a living creature who chose to Taoification must have completely fallen. However, the mysterious man chose to Taoification at this moment. Of course, his purpose was not to commit suicide, but to escape from Feng Zichen and hide his identity to facilitate his future plans. Unlike the Chaos Fiend god, the mysterious man was a native of the untainted land. He had lived in the untainted land for countless years and had even heard about the Tao in the Purple Cloud Palace. Over the endless years, he had hidden countless secret moves and trump cards. And these trump cards and secret moves were enough to ensure that after his death, he could return to the untainted land as quickly as possible. Of course, there was no perfect magical power in the world. Perhaps someone could block his resurrection. Therefore, in order to prevent accidents from happening after being suppressed by Feng Zichen, he saw that there was no hope of escaping, so he directly killed himself and Taoified between heaven and earth. In this way, even if he died in his own hands, he would not have to worry about accident. In terms of effect, this method was indeed very good. At the very least, Feng Zichen had no ability to stop the mysterious man from Taoifying. How rich was the mysterious man's source energy? He chose to Taoification and return his origin to heaven and earth. Heaven and earth could not be more happy, so how could it refuse? At this time, if someone dared to interfere with the process of the mysterious man's Taoification, they would be against heaven and earth. The outcome, one could imagine. It was because of this that Feng Zichen would not forcibly interrupt the mysterious man's human transformation. The price of forming karma with the world was too great. From a certain point of view, this kind of escape method could be said to be unsolvable. This was using one's own origin to buy one's life back then. When Feng Zichen was sealed by Donghuang Tai, he had used this technique to transform the heavens and the earth and escaped from the seal. Until today. That had long that. He didn't expect that there would be someone who used his methods back then to escape from his hand. Fate was truly making fools of people. However, although this method could be said to be unsolvable, the price to pay for using this method was beyond imagination. One had to die once and completely disperse all of one's innate origin. This was using hundreds of millions of years of bitter cultivation in exchange for a chance to escape. In the past, after Feng Zichen Taoified, if it were not for the 4 imperial thrones, he would not know how long it would take for him to fully recover his strength. In other words, although the mysterious man had escaped from Feng Zichen, his strength was bound to drop to the freezing point. It would be wrong to be able to maintain the combat strength of Daluo Jinxian. Now was the best time to kill him. Just a few golden immortals of the great overarching heaven could completely destroy his life force. As for not knowing the identity of the mysterious man and his whereabouts, how could he kill him? There was no need to worry about this. The mysterious man's movements were very fast. He did not give Feng Zichen a chance to tear apart his disguise. However, from the moment he used a special method to possess the World Tree, he had exposed too much information. With the ability of the World Tree, If one wanted to possess his body and not be rejected by him, the person who possessed him must have unimaginable achievements in the wood element. After all, the world tree was the leader of the primordial spiritual roots. It was the most supreme existence in the innate wood element. If one wanted to not be rejected by him, apart from having an innate spiritual root, one could only have unimaginable achievements in the innate wood element. One of the 3,000 guests of the Purple Cloud Palace, and one had unimaginable achievements in the innate wood element. More importantly, this person had just died. Even if he was resurrected in time, his strength would drop greatly. With these three conditions added together, there were not many people in the primordial world who met them. In this way, wouldn't the range be narrowed down? After all, there were only 3,000 guests of the Purple Cloud Palace. Among these 3,000 people, it might be a little difficult for Feng Zichen to find a powerful person who had just died and was good at the innate wood element. However, for Zhen Yuanzi, the great Void Taoist, the Kuanping Patriarch, and the others, these powerful people of the Purple Cloud Palace, it was an extremely easy task. At most, it would take some energy. They had all heard of the Purple Cloud Palace. They saw each other all the time. Who didn't know each other? Even someone like the Nether River Patriarch, who was a loner, was remembered, let alone other people. As long as these powerful people took action, they would find the mysterious man even if he was hiding in the chaos beyond the sky. As long as he had existed, there would definitely be traces left. By following these traces, they would be able to locate the traces of the mysterious man. As for whether those powerful people would be willing to help, of course they would. If the mysterious man was just purely an enemy of the human race, the powerful people would most likely stand by and watch. They might even be happy to see it happen. However, he should never have thought of destroying the primordial world. This was to become an enemy of the entire primordial world. At this moment, no one in the entire primordial world could tolerate him, let alone save him. Even his former friends would turn against him and become one of the people who hunted him down. The traitor was destined to die without a burial place. This matter has to be done as soon as possible. Otherwise, the longer it drags on, the more variables there will be. Who knows, I might really give that person a chance to escape. The mysterious man was so confident in his self-Tao immolation. Obviously, he was fully prepared. He was confident that he could be resurrected in an extremely short period of time and quickly pass the period of weakness. Therefore, this matter could not be delayed. It was best to find out his true identity before he was resurrected so as to completely cut off his hope of resurrection. With a thought, Feng Zichen was about to head to the battlefield in the depths of the void to meet up with those powerful people. However, just as he was about to move, he suddenly remembered something. He stopped in his tracks and looked at the void around the world tree that had completely turned into nothingness. I still have to deal with this place. Otherwise, if someone accidentally trespasses into this place, it will be troublesome. Looking around, Feng Zichen thought to himself. The power of nothingness was still too powerful, and it could not distinguish between friend and foe. If someone accidentally stepped into it, his ending would definitely be extremely miserable. For this, Feng Zichen still had to make a good arrangement to isolate this place from the outside world. If someone still barged into this place, then the other party's purpose was worth pondering. Thinking about it, he would not be wronged. Seal. With a thought, Feng Zichen raised the Hongmeng Daozhong. Dang! In an instant, the sound of a bell rang. The aura of Hongmeng covered the sky and earth, and turned into a huge purple net, completely enveloping this place and completely isolating it from the outside world. He believed that with this net formed by the aura of Hongmeng, as long as the other party did not insist on entering the vicinity of the world tree, he would definitely not be able to pass through the purple net. That's good. Let's go. Putting away the Hongmeng Daozhong, Feng Zichen transformed into a purple aura of Hongmeng and carefully passed through the bounded domain of nothingness to leave this place. Under the power of nothingness, there was no time or space in this place, which eliminated the possibility of someone breaking through the air and arriving here. Similarly, if one wanted to leave this place, the ordinary method was also different. Because this place did not exist in the first place. Since it did not exist, how could one leave? Only the aura of Hongmeng had the power to create something out of nothing and could freely travel through this place. Just as Feng Zichen was traveling through the bounded domain of nothingness, the other two battlefields also changed. First was the boundless starry sky. After seeing that the 5 Chaos Demon Gods were defeated, the 4 Chaos Demon Gods who were fighting with God Pangu directly withdrew and left. The Pangu celestial being did not stop them. They were not the original bodies of the Chaos Demon Gods, so there was no point in them staying. Instead, they would force the other party to fight to the death and bring great damage to the boundless starry sky. Therefore, Feng Zichen allowed them to leave. On the other side, around the main battlefield of the human clan, seeing that their plan had failed, the Chaos Demon Gods did not have the heart to fight with the great mediums, so they all fled to outer space. Regarding this, the great divine ability masters were naturally very unwilling in their hearts. But they had no other choice. The strength of the two sides was not much different. If one side wanted to escape, the other side would definitely not be able to stop it. Fellow Taoists, please come to the heavenly court for a chat. I have something important to discuss with you. Just as everyone was hesitating, Feng Zichen's voice suddenly came from outer space and fell into their ears. Let's go. Knowing that Feng Zichen summoned them at this time, there must be something big happening. Everyone did not hesitate and rushed to the heavenly court. As the two sides left one after another, Xian Yuan's side and Qi Yu's side looked at the devastation on the ground and were speechless for a while. After so many things had happened, Xian Yuan and Qi Yu did not want to continue fighting at this moment. They withdrew their troops and went back to stabilize the people's hearts. But both sides understood that after this, the next battle might be the final battle. In the heavenly court, after Feng Zichen told everyone about the mysterious person, he directly left and returned to Ziwei Star. What happened after that? Without Feng Zichen's arrangement, those great mediums naturally knew what to do. Fellow Taoists, since that person has the idea of destroying the untainted world, it can be seen that he is no longer of the same mind as us. He is no longer our fellow Taoist. So, now is not the time to be merciful. I think all of you know what to do. After Feng Zichen left, Zhen Yuanzi said to everyone bitterly. Among the people present, his cultivation might not be the strongest, but in terms of merit and contribution to the untainted world, there was no doubt that Zhen Yuanzi was the highest. Therefore, he was qualified to occupy the main position. In fact, that was the case. These words were obviously more suitable for Zhen Yuanzi to say than for Feng Zichen. It was precisely because he understood this that Feng Zichen left directly after he finished speaking. After all, no matter what, that mysterious person was once their fellow Taoist and fellow Taoist. They closed the door to discuss how to clean up the sect. That was their own business. Feng Zichen was an outsider and it was really not appropriate for him to interfere. All the races have been caught. The internal strife of the human race should come to an end. On Ziwei Star, Feng Zichen silently watched the changes of the human race. In his eyes, this internal strife of the human race was like a huge storm. It had completely involved all the races and they could not escape. The fish had been caught. Of course, it was time to reap the harvest. Ao Shui, ask the girl to go to the Gaochen Heavenly Palace and take the Emperor's sword that is stored in the Heavenly Emperor Palace and give it to Xian Yuan. In the starry sky, Feng Zichen transmitted his voice to Ao Shui. With Qi Yu's strength and the help of the witch race, if Feng Zichen did not increase the stakes for Xian Yuan, he would definitely not be able to defeat Qiyu. No matter how declining the witch race was, they were still the witch race. Their strength was far beyond imagination. Moreover, had the witch race really declined? One had to know. What was the use of the 6 paths of reincarnation? With this treasure, it meant that the witch race had infinite possibilities. Those great witches who had fallen in the battle between the witch race and the demon race would eventually return one by one. Therefore, with the help of the witch race, Xianyuan alone would definitely not be able to defeat Qiyu. Therefore, at this moment, it was up to Feng Zichen to make a move. The Emperor's sword that he asked the girl to go to the Gaochen Heavenly Palace to retrieve for Xianyuan was none other than the witch-killing sword that Di Jun had refined with the flesh and blood of countless humans. After the witch race calamity, this sword, along with the heavenly cycle star banner, fell into the hands of Feng Zichen. The achievement of this sword could be said to have created the blood and tears of the human race. Therefore, this sword carried the thick resentment that came from the bodies of the innocent humans who had died tragically. In order to eliminate the resentment of this sword, Feng Zichen placed it in the Heavenly Emperor Palace and baptized it with the will power of the human race day and night. Finally, it was forged into a supreme divine sword that protected the human race. This sword had no name. It was its duty to protect the human race. Therefore, this sword's killing power was unparalleled. The best protection was to kill. Killing all the enemies would naturally give one the greatest security. The witch-killing sword. It was one of the strongest postnatal supreme treasures. After being baptized by the will power of the human race, it had undoubtedly become stronger. Chapter 624. Under the baptism of the wish power of the human race, the sword had completely dissolved all the resentment and transformed into the race weapon of the human race. It was connected to the fate of the human race. In other words, the sword had already transcended the limits of its level and could not be judged by common sense. The power it could exert was related to the fate of the human race. The stronger the fate of the human race, the stronger the power it could exert. If the fate of the human race reached its peak one day, it could exert the power of a connate treasure, or even surpass it. Of course, if the human race declined, the power of the sword would drop to the freezing point, or even collapse. In short, the power of the sword was related to the fate of the human race. With the current fate of the human race, the sword could exert the power of a supreme-grade connate spirit treasure, or even infinitely close to a connate treasure. In this way, with the help of the sword, Xianyuan might be able to defeat Qiyu. Yes, it was only a possibility, not a certainty. If Xianyuan could get help from Feng Zichen, Qiyu could also get help from Hudu. With the foundation of the Wu tribe, the treasures they offered were not necessarily inferior to those offered by Feng Zichen. Therefore, in order to be safe, Feng Zichen gave Xianyuan more than that. Just as the girl was heading to Gaochen Heavenly Palace, the mysterious West Kunlun in the untainted land finally revealed a corner of its mysterious veil. Caw! With a high-pitched caw, a blue phoenix wrapped in blue flames flew out of West Kunlun with a veiled goddess on its back. It flew towards the territory of the human race. This woman was the master of West Kunlun, the leader of the female immortals in the untainted land, and the disciple of the Queen Mother of the West. At the same time, she was also one of the 3 ancestors of the human race, Zihuangzi clan. He went to the human race. His purpose was naturally to help Xianyuan. This was another trump card Feng Zichen had prepared for Xianyuan. Has Zihuang left? Then it's time for me to make my move. On the Ziwei star, after Feng Zichen saw 9 Heavens mystical maiden walking out of West Kunlun, he no longer hesitated and immediately sent a message to the 5 innate races, asking them to help Xianyuan's side. At the same time, Feng Zichen also issued a decree to the heavenly court, ordering the experts of the heavenly court to come down and support the human emperor Xianyuan. This was a benefit for them. If they could assist the human emperor in unifying the untainted land, those who had participated in the war would more or less gain some merit when the war ended. After all, things were different now. As the great desolate world became increasingly perfect, it became increasingly difficult to obtain merit. Therefore, every major event that was related to merit was a great opportunity for everyone, and they could not miss it no matter what. Orders were passed down from the Z-Way star into the ears of the 5 innate races experts and the heaven court's gods. For a time, the untainted land was in turmoil again. Many experts responded to Feng Zichen's call and set off from the dojo to the ancestral land of the human race to help the human emperor Xianyuan. It was precisely because of this that the strength of Xuanyuan's side soared several times in a very short period of time. When Feng Zichen was helping Xianyuan, Qi Yu's side was not calm either. A Khanate Grand Magus, who lived in seclusion, walked out of the Pangu Palace with the Grand Magus blood essence, and came to Qi Yu. He was Xing Tian. The person who came was the most powerful Grand Magus of the wizard clan, Xing Tian. Xing Tian was born from Pangu's heart. He was the first Grand Magus to be born after the birth of the ancestral Magus. He could be said to be the number 1 Magus below the 12 ancestral Magi, with the cultivation of the great perfection of the sage-to-be. Xing Tian had come. He had come to help Qi Yu. This was not difficult to understand. Qi Yu was the reincarnation of Wu Shisan, and Wu Shisan was the existence that replaced Hutu. As a Grand Magus of the Hutu tribe, Xing Tian had to stand on the same side as him. In fact, the Grand Magus of the Wizard clan who had been teaching Qi Yu was the incarnation of Xing Tian. What kind of status did Wu Shisan have in the Wizard clan? How could he not have a protector when he was reincarnated? Xing Tian was his protector. This time, the reason why Xing Tian came was that he could not stand it anymore. The two sides were originally evenly matched, but because of the other side's cheating, the gap between them suddenly widened. How could the bad-tempered Xing Tian tolerate this? Therefore, he took a small part of the Grand Magus blood essence from the Pangu Palace to improve the strength of Qi Yu's side. Although Qi Yu's force was made up of countless mutant branches, the foundation of this alliance and the backbone of it was the Wizard clan where Qi Yu came from. The Wizard clan. They were lives born from the intermarriage between the human race and the Wizard clan. They inherited the bloodline of the Wizard clan and were born stronger than ordinary humans. They could even be compared to the innate human clan in the ancient times. With such talent, their understanding of the Tao of gods and demons was obviously much stronger than ordinary humans. Because of this, they were powerful. Among the human race, there were not many clans who could compete with the Wizard clan. Only the Feng clan where Feng Zichen came from had better talent than the Wizard clan because they were favored by Feng Zichen. However, the pure Feng clan was the royal family of the human race. There were very few of them, and they could not be compared to the Wizard clan. And this. It created the powerful reputation of the Wizard clan. If such a powerful Wizard clan refined the Grand Magus blood essence, their strength would definitely increase by a few levels. In this way, it would be even more difficult for the human race to compete with them. Moreover, Xing Tian came here not only with the Grand Magus blood essence, but also with the innate divine weapon that the 12 ancestral Magi had forged for Wu Shisan. It was a large halberd that was surrounded by a murderous aura and emitted a terrifying wave. The name of the weapon was the Wizard Halberd. It was simple and straightforward, very fitting with the naming style of the Wizard clan. The aura emitted by the Wizard Halberd was unusually strong. However, it had no level. Not only it, but the weapons of the other ancestral Magi also had no level. They were the purest weapons and there were no marks of Tao or rule marks on them. The only thing they possessed was power, incomparable power. They had unleashed the power they had inherited from Pangu to the pinnacle. It was full of the beauty of strength. This kind of weapon that abandoned all Tao and only retained the purest strength was undoubtedly powerful in the hands of the ancestral magi who had strong physical bodies. It was unimaginably strong. It could be said that once Qi Yu mastered the wizard halberd, his strength would definitely increase by more than a few times. There was nothing in the world that could not be broken. If it could not be broken, it was not because of the lack of strength, but because the strength was not enough. 1,000 years later, Xianyuan integrated all the forces under his command and felt that the time was right. He launched an army to attack Qi Yu. At the same time, Qi Yu's side had also digested the resources that Xing Tian had brought from Pangu's palace. Their strength had increased greatly. Therefore, Qi Yu also moved and launched an army to attack Xianyuan. Just like that, a shocking battle broke out between the two sides in Zhuolu. At the beginning of the battle, the two sides tacitly launched the fiercest attacks in an attempt to destroy each other in one fell swoop. However, because the two sides were evenly matched in strength, they fought for a long time, but there was no winner. Both sides were exchanging blows back and forth, fighting to their heart's content, but they were unable to determine a victor. Over time, the battle was in a stalemate. However, this stalemate did not last long. Very soon, it was broken by a sudden change of events. The other folk from the Seven Stars continent and the other folk from the 5 pre-celestial races suddenly rebelled and joined Xianyuan. This sudden turn of events could be said to have caught Qi Yu off guard. Similarly, because of these mutants' betrayal, the strength of Xuanyuan's side increased, while the strength of Qi Yu's side decreased greatly. As a result, the situation changed immediately. The previous evenly matched situation was completely reversed. Qi Yu's side was defeated by Xuanyuan's side and fled in a sorry state. During this period, Qi Yu tried to turn the tide and reorganize his army to fight Xianyuan Ju to the death. However, before he could make a move, what greeted him was the joint attack of all the top experts on Xuanyuan's side. Xianyuan, Xian Nu of the Ninth Heaven, Taoist Randeng, Yinglong, and a series of quasi-saint experts joined forces to kill Qi Yu. The result could be imagined. Even though Qi Yu's combat strength was unparalleled, facing the joint attack of so many existences of the same realm as him, he could not avoid being defeated and captured. That's right, Qi Yu was suppressed and captured alive by everyone. Originally, Qi Yu had the chance to self-destruct. However, the scene of ancestral which self-destructing had really shocked everyone. Therefore, before Wu Shisan entered the cycle of reincarnation, Hodu had restricted him so that he could not self-destruct. And this became the main reason why Qi Yu was captured. Imagine. At the critical moment when Qi Yu wanted to self-destruct and end all of this, he suddenly realized that he could not do it. That moment of shock and absent-mindedness became his biggest flaw. Suddenly losing his mind during the life-and-death battle was the main reason why Qi Yu was captured. Fellow Taoist, what do you mean by this? Just as Qi Yu was captured, Xing Tian said coldly to the peerless figure from the Seven Stars continent in the void. At this moment, Xing Tian was very angry. As he spoke, the violent aura around him could not help but pour out and suppress the other party. However, the other party was obviously not a good person. Just as Xing Tian's berserk aura was about to reach him, a mysterious aura suddenly rose from the body of the exceptional being from the Seven Stars continent and neutralized the aura that was bearing down on him. This was the ability to turn everything into void. It was because of this that Xing Tian was afraid and resisted the urge to attack and talked to the other party. Otherwise, with Xing Tian's bad temper, he would have already killed the other party. Ha ha! Fellow Taoist Xing Tian, what do you think I mean? The matters of the human race will be settled by the human race themselves. Why do you, an outsider, have to interfere? The peerless figure from the Seven Stars continent laughed and comforted Xing Tian. "Humph! I'm only here to save Qi Yu. I have no intention of interfering in the affairs of the human race. Qi Yu has the potential of an ancestral wizard. He must not be lost to the human race." With a cold snort, Xing Tian explained. Who in the human race was qualified to be his teacher? Fuxi had descended into the world, and the Grand Pure One had personally accepted him as a disciple. Even if Wu Shisan's status was not as high as Fuxi's, it was not far away. In this case, he could not casually find someone to teach Qi Yu. Otherwise, if it was not done properly, it would bring shame to the Magi. At that time, no matter how good his relationship with Feng Zichen was, the Lady of Earth would not be satisfied and would definitely not let him go. It would even ruin the relationship between the two clans. Chapter 625. Based on the above points, Feng Zichen split out an incarnation and used the name of a peerless figure of the Seven Stars continent to personally teach Qi Yu. After all, Feng Zichen also had the name of a wizard. It was the most suitable for him to teach Qi Yu. A wizard was the master of the wizard race. Sigh. I'm born to work. Shaking his head and sighing, Feng Zichen disappeared into the void. Next he would be busy. Back then, in order to get Goddess Hudu to agree to let Wu Shisan reincarnate into the human race, Feng Zichen had promised to give Wu Shisan a great opportunity to help him achieve the Tao. Now with Qi Yu's defeat and capture by Xianyuan, it was time for him to fulfill his promise. The ancestral land of the human race, in front of the Tai Temple, 5 thick divine chains of order stretched out from the void and firmly locked Qi Yu's limbs, fixing him in the void and preventing him from coming into contact with the earth. Standing on the earth, the power of the wizard race could be said to be endless. As the leader of the wizard race, Qi Yu had obviously inherited this. If he came into contact with the earth, he might be able to escape. Therefore, everyone locked him in the void to prevent Qi Yu from obtaining power from the earth. The purpose of everyone locking Qi Yu here was to execute him in public. To execute the punishment of being dismembered by 5 horses. Qi Yu's actions were to fight for the status of the mutants, but in reality, he was dividing the human race. Therefore, Xianyuan gave him retribution and dismembered him. Those who divided the human race should be dismembered. Xianyuan, I don't accept this. You tricked me. You won with an unfair advantage. Qi Yu was still unconvinced as he was locked in the void by the divine chains of order. In his opinion, Xianyuan was far from his match. If he hadn't used tricks, how could he have defeated him? Or even captured him alive? Therefore, he was not convinced. Humph! You still don't know that you're about to die. Execute! Xianyuan snorted coldly and ignored Qi Yu. Instead, he ordered coldly. Yes, Your Majesty. As soon as Xianyuan gave the order, 5 people stepped forward to accept it. They were all experts from the 5 Xiantian races, and each of them had the same cultivation base as Daluo Jinxian. Without further ado, the 5 of them took out 5 innate divine chains and placed them around Qi Yu's neck and limbs. After doing this, the 5 of them took a deep breath and shouted. They pulled the innate divine chains in their hands with all their might and headed in the opposite direction of Qi Yu. As Daluo Jinxian, one of the innate 5 Daluo Jinxian, one could easily imagine the strength of these 5 people. Even if a greater 1,000 world was placed in front of them without any defense and allowed to be pulled, it would be pulled apart by them. Therefore, when the 5 of them pulled at the innate divine chains in their hands with all their might, Qi Yu's body was pulled straight in an instant. It stood upright in the void. However, that was all. After Qi Yu's body was pulled straight, no matter how hard the 5 of them tried, they couldn't take another step forward. Qi Yu's body was too strong. It was far from what they could destroy. Ha ha! Xian Yuan, you think you can tear my body apart with just them? You're underestimating me. Come back. In the void, Qi Yu looked at the 5 people who were struggling to pull the innate divine chains in their hands and couldn't help but laugh out loud. Then, with a loud shout, he exerted all his strength and stretched out his limbs, forcefully pulling the 5 of them back. Bang! 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 Caught off guard, the 5 people were pulled down by Qi Yu on the spot. Ha ha! Looking at the miserable state of the 5 people, Qi Yu couldn't help but laugh out loud. He didn't think that Xian Yuan had the ability to kill him. He knew his own situation very well. Qi Yu's body had been baptized by the essence blood of the ancestral witch. In addition, his comprehension of the path of gods and demons had made his body immortal. If one wanted to destroy his body, they would either use a primordial treasure or spend a lot of time using the power of time to destroy it. And these 2 points, with the current situation of the human race, it was very difficult to do. Humph! Qi Yu, you're so arrogant. Let's see how the poor way comes to kill you. Besides Xian Yuan, Taoist Randang couldn't help but scold Qi Yu when he saw that a prisoner like Qi Yu dared to be so arrogant. At the same time, he also took out his lifelong spiritual treasure, the high-grade primordial spiritual treasure, the universal ruler, and attacked Qi Yu in an attempt to kill him. Boom! A ruler surrounded by clear light flew out from Taoist Randang's hand and turned into a huge universal world that pressed down on Qi Yu. A vast world fell down and smashed onto Qi Yu's body. One could imagine the power that erupted. On the spot, Qi Yu let out a loud wail. Pain, it was too painful. But that was it. Apart from the pain, the attack of the universal ruler did not cause any harm to Qi Yu. Boom! 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 The universal ruler smashed down again and again, causing Qi Yu to roar angrily. However, his aura did not weaken at all. After a while, Taoist Randang could not help but feel a little tired because he had continuously activated the universal ruler with all his might. He then put away his Dharma treasure with a resentful expression. At this moment, without the universal ruler blocking him, Qi Yu appeared in front of everyone again. Yes, compared to before, there was not much change. Under Taoist Randang's crazy attacks, Qi Yu was not injured at all. This time, Taoist Randang was really embarrassed. His words were beautiful previously, but the result, ahem. Your Majesty, Qi Yu's body has been baptized by the blood essence of the Magus and has reached the indestructible realm. I'm afraid it's difficult to destroy it with ordinary methods. In order to hide his embarrassment, Taoist Randang first coughed a few times before explaining to Xian Yuan. Boom! 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 Just as Taoist Randang was speaking, a few mighty figures who did not believe in evil used their own methods and attacked Qi Yu. The result was the same as before. It was useless. Ha ha! Trash, a bunch of trash! You want to kill me with just you? Dream on. Even though he was trapped in everyone's divine abilities, Qi Yu still had the mood to mock them. Everyone was embarrassed when they heard that. However, everything that had happened just now proved that Qi Yu was telling the truth. For a moment, everyone felt aggrieved. Qi Yu, don't be arrogant. Watch me kill you. Xian Yuan's sword, slash. Seeing how arrogant Qi Yu was, Xian Yuan could not help but be a little angry. He raised the Xian Yuan sword and slashed at Qi Yu. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 5 sword lights shot out from the Xian Yuan sword and slashed at Qi Yu's neck and limbs. It was strange that Qi Yu's body, which no one could hurt before, was as fragile as tofu under the 5 sword lights. It was easily cut by the sword lights. In the blink of an eye, Qi Yu's head and limbs were separated from his body. His whole body was divided into 6 parts. This was not surprising. The predecessor of the Xian Yuan sword was the Wu-killing sword that Di Jun had specially refined to deal with the ancestor of sorcery. The power of this sword could easily break the body of the ancestor of sorcery, let alone Qi Yu's body. It was his nemesis. How could it be? Even though his body was divided into 6 parts, Qi Yu still did not die. He just looked at his split body in a daze, his eyes full of disbelief. His almost indestructible body was so easily cut down by someone? He's not dead? Just when Qi Yu was in a daze, he heard Xuanyuan's surprised voice. Guards, suppress Qi Yu's body in the 5 lakes and 4 seas so that it can never be gathered. Then, before Qi Yu could react, Xuanyuan's majestic voice continued. Yes. After that, Qi Yu heard someone take the order and leave with his broken body. After that, Qi Yu's consciousness fell into a deep sleep, and he had no idea what happened next. Today, I will use the power of the 6 forces to refine your broken body. When you break out of the seal in the future, you will have the confidence to become a primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. After everyone had suppressed Qiu's body parts, Feng Zichen appeared silently. He performed a supreme grand superpower to draw in the innate 6 directions force and infused it into the 6 parts of Qiu's body. This tribulation was also a kind of opportunity for Qi Yu. As the saying goes, there can be no construction without destruction. Although Qi Yu's body was divided into 6 parts, Feng Zichen drew the power of the 6 forces for him to refine his body. In this way, when Qi Yu's body was reunited in the future, he could use the power of the 6 forces to break through to the realm of primordial Daluo Jinxian. This was a great opportunity. It was just that the price he had to pay was a little high. However, this price was nothing compared to becoming a primordial Daluo Jinxian. After arranging everything, Feng Zichen left. As for when Qi Yu's body would be reunited, that was a matter of the witch race. It had nothing to do with him, because Qi Yu was no longer the Qi Yu of the human race, but Wu Shisan of the witch race. From the moment Qi Yu was dismembered by Xuanyuan, his fate with the human race was over. With the defeat of the Jili tribe and the death of Qi Yu, Xuanyuan finally unified the human race and integrated all the forces of the human race. It was also at this time that Xuanyuan led the human army and began to conquer the 10,000 races. He was taking revenge. The 10,000 races secretly helped the mutants and tried to split the human race. As the human emperor, how could Xuanyuan let them go so easily? Naturally, he had to teach the 10,000 races a lesson and weaken their strength. Therefore, Xuanyuan led the human army to sweep through the 10,000 races in the name of cleaning up the traitors. The 10,000 races were naturally dissatisfied with this. However, because they were in the wrong and the human race was too powerful to resist, they all came to surrender with compensation. What followed was a series of wrangling. It was impossible to wipe out the 10,000 races in one fell swoop. Xuanyuan naturally knew this. Therefore, his purpose was not to destroy the 10,000 races, but to torture them and consume their strength. This time, even if he couldn't destroy the 10,000 races, he would hurt them so that he could clear the obstacles for future generations. This was Xuanyuan's purpose, and this had nothing to do with Feng Zichen. He believed that with Xuanyuan's means, he could handle all of this. At this moment, Feng Zichen was dealing with another matter. Escaped. Under your siege, the person escaped? In the Ziwei Heavenly Palace, Feng Zichen looked at Zenyuanzi in disbelief, as if he couldn't believe what he had said. Zenyuanzi had come to tell him about the identity of the mysterious person. After everyone's hard work, they finally confirmed the identity of the person. It was Taoist Mu Xian, one of the 3,000 visitors of the Purple Cloud Palace. This person was the manifestation of the innate wood origin. His achievements in the innate wood element were not much worse than Go Mang's. As an innate god born from the innate wood origin, Taoist Mu Xian had always given people the impression that he was kind-hearted and loved life the most. According to this, he shouldn't have done anything to destroy the untainted world. However, after repeated confirmation by everyone, it was indeed him. This made it difficult for everyone to accept. How could such a good person suddenly become a great demon that could destroy the heavens and the earth? With curiosity, everyone went to explore Taoist Mu Xian's mental journey, trying to find the reason for his change. When a group of great divine abilities joined forces, the power that erupted was undoubtedly astonishing. They were the incarnations of the Great Path, the favorites of heaven and earth. Under their joint efforts, the origin of heaven and earth would be alarmed, and even saints would have to retreat. From this, one could see how powerful they were. Therefore, under their joint efforts they really found some clues. The change of Taoist Mu Xian. It was related to the demon god of chaos who had possessed him. At that time, the demon god of chaos had failed to possess Taoist Mu Xian. Seeing that he was about to be swallowed by Taoist Mu Xian, he was extremely unwilling and made the demon god of chaos do something shocking. He used all his strength to integrate his remnant spirit into Taoist Mu Xian's innate indestructible true spirit. Although this greatly increased Taoist Mu Xian's strength, it also made him under the influence of the remnant spirit of the demon god of chaos all the time. Because of this, Taoist Mu Xian's temperament changed greatly, and he had the idea of destroying the untainted world and refining the Hongmeng purple qi to become a saint. As for the demon god of chaos, he felt that having a saint on his side would be helpful to his future plans, so he helped him. The previous world-destroying action was because of this. After finding the reason for Taoist Mu Xian's depravity, everyone felt pity in their hearts, but they also knew that he couldn't be left alive. If a person who knew the details of the untainted world stood on the opposite side of the untainted world, the consequences would undoubtedly be terrible. Thinking of this, everyone was more diligent in finding the whereabouts of Taoist Mu Xian. With the joint efforts of everyone, they soon found the whereabouts of Taoist Mu Xian. At that time, Taoist Mu Xian had just been resurrected, and before he had time to look around, he was surrounded by a group of great magicians. Logically speaking, a powerless great ability user would naturally be captured without being able to put up any resistance when faced with several dozen great ability users who were at their peak. However, the truth was often unexpected. Chapter 626. He escaped. Taoist Mu Xian escaped. Under the siege of a group of powerful figures, Taoist Mu Xian escaped calmly. This was the reason why Feng Zichen was shocked. A group of ferocious tigers surrounding a sheep, and the sheep even managed to escape. Wasn't this a joke? How could the flying dragon lose? Taoist Zenyuanzi, what's going on? Extremely surprised, Feng Zichen asked Zenyuanzi directly. Alas! It's also Poor Wei's fault for being careless. I didn't expect Taoist Mu Xian to have the congenital Taoist talisman refined by my teacher in the past. This gave him a chance to escape. At this point, Zenyuanzi sighed with emotion. Obviously, this result was also beyond his expectations. Before the incident, no one would have thought that Taoist Mu Xian would have a chance to escape. The congenital Taoist talisman, refined by the Taoist ancestor? No, when did the Taoist ancestor refine the congenital Taoist talisman? Why haven't I heard of it? Moreover, why would the congenital Taoist talisman, refined by the Taoist ancestor, appear in the hands of Taoist Mu Xian? Hearing this, Feng Zichen became more and more puzzled. Why had he never heard of the congenital Taoist talisman, refined by the Taoist ancestor, and had never seen anyone use it? Such a treasure. He shouldn't be unknown to the public. Must be a supreme treasure that everyone was fighting for. He should have heard of it. It's normal that Your Majesty doesn't know about this. In fact, not many people in the entire untainted land know about this. Even poor Wei didn't know about it before Taoist Mu Xian took out the congenital Taoist talisman, refined by my teacher. Shaking his head, Zhen Yuanzi said helplessly. He really didn't know that the Taoist ancestor refined the congenital Taoist talisman. Why is that? It was about the treasure refined by the Taoist ancestor, so Feng Zichen couldn't help but be curious. Therefore, he continued to ask. Back then, after the 3 sermons in the Purple Cloud Palace, my teacher left an opportunity for poor Wei and the others on the treasure-snatching rock. It could be said that our master-disciple relationship was fulfilled. Countless innate treasures are listed on the treasure-snatching rock. Many of them are connate numinous treasures that teacher collected when he traveled through the primordial world. Some of them are connate treasures with special functions that master forged in his spare time. These Xiantian treasures are extremely rare, and their abilities are even more bizarre. They are hidden among the numerous innate spiritual treasures, and only those with great opportunities can obtain them. The connate Dao talisman in Taoist Mu Xian's hand belongs to this type of special treasure. A treasure like this is extremely secretive. If its owner didn't take the initiative to reveal it, others would absolutely be unable to detect it in the slightest. And who would publicize the fact that they obtained such a treasure? Therefore, no one knew that Taoist Mu Xian had obtained the innate Taoist talisman made by the Taoist ancestor, and no one knew that innate Taoist talismans existed in this world. If Taoist Mu Xian hadn't used this talisman in order to escape, I'm afraid this news would have been buried forever. At this point, Zhen Yuanzi's tone was laced with envy. The power of the innate Taoist talisman made by the Taoist ancestor must be quite terrifying. It was no exaggeration to say that with this talisman, it was equivalent to having a second life. Who wouldn't envy it? At least, Zhen Yuanzi couldn't. Even Feng Zichen was a little tempted after hearing this. But what he was more worried about was that since there was the first innate Taoist talisman made by the Taoist ancestor, would there be a second or third one? Moreover, even a treasure like the innate Taoist talisman had appeared. Who knew what other strange treasures would appear next? Thinking of this, Feng Zichen couldn't help but have a headache. The water in the primordial world was getting deeper and deeper. He was also careless. He had never thought that the legendary treasure-snatching rock, in addition to numerous connate numinous treasures, there were also some gadgets made by the Taoist ancestor. This was very speechless. The Taoist ancestor really knew how to play. Alas! Sighing in his heart, Feng Zichen understood that in the future, he would have to re-evaluate the powerful divines in the primordial world. Even Taoist Mu Xian had the innate Taoist talisman made by the Taoist ancestor. Who knew what other people had in their hands? Maybe someone had an offensive jade talisman made by the Taoist ancestor. That would be exciting. Thinking of this, Feng Zichen comforted Zhen Yuanzi. Don't worry. I see. You can't blame the others for this. Who would have thought that Taoist Mu Xian had the innate Taoist talisman left by the Taoist ancestor? Fortunately, Taoist Mu Xian used the innate Taoist talisman to escape, instead of fighting desperately with you. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Feng Zichen didn't know the specific power of the innate Taoist talisman. But since it had something to do with Taoist Hongjun, its power couldn't be underestimated. From the fact that Taoist Mu Xian could easily escape from the encirclement of many powerful divines by relying on it, it could be seen that the power of the innate Taoist talisman was definitely extremely powerful. If Taoist Mu Xian didn't use this Taoist talisman to escape but used it to attack the powerful divines, the power of the innate Taoist talisman might explode. If they were caught off guard, one or two of them would really die completely. This time, the experience of the powerful divines was really exciting. Who says so? Fortunately, poor Wei and the others went with many people. Otherwise, if one or two of them went alone, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to come back. Thinking of the terrible consequences, even Zhen Yuanzi couldn't help but feel a little scared. This operation in general, it was really unlucky. When everyone worked together, it should have been a sure thing, but there was an accident. Not only did it embarrass them, but they almost lost their lives. Wasn't that unlucky? Brother Zhen Yuanzi, there's something I'd like to discuss with you all. I hope you can pass on my message. After a moment of silence, Feng Zichen suddenly said to Zhen Yuanzi with a serious face, "What's the matter, Your Majesty? I'll definitely relay it to my fellow Taoists." Seeing Feng Zichen's serious face, Zhen Yuanzi also replied with a serious face, "Brother, the failure to kill Taoist Mu Xian will definitely intensify his determination to turn to the chaos demonic god. In the future, the untainted land will be in danger. For this reason, I plan to summon all the Daluo Jingxian in the untainted land and persuade them to leave the untainted land voluntarily to reduce the pressure on the untainted land. If there are no more Daluo Jingxian in the untainted land, no matter how powerful Taoist Mu Xian is, he can't provoke disputes in the untainted land. In this way, the untainted land will undoubtedly be much safer than before." Speaking of this, Feng Zichen paused, changed the topic, and asked Zhen Yuanzi earnestly, "If I want to accomplish this, I will undoubtedly need the help of all of you. Thus, Ziwei sincerely requests that all of you lend me a hand. The fewer top forces in the untainted land, the safer the untainted land would be." There was nothing wrong with this. If the untainted land was full of Tai Jingxian, it would be difficult to shake the untainted land even if they all self-destructed. But if Daluo Jingxian, sage to be, and powerful mediums self-destructed, it would be different. It would really shake the foundation of the untainted land. In order to prevent this from happening, Feng Zichen took this opportunity to try to move all the masters above Daluo Jingxian in the untainted land away. This, after hearing Feng Zichen's words, Zhen Yuanzi didn't immediately agree. He was a little hesitant, because he saw through Feng Zichen's real purpose. Why would he need Zhen Yuanzi's help just to move the Daluo Jingxian? With the strength of great Emperor Ziwei, who would dare to disobey an order from Daluo Jingxian in the untainted land? Did they really think that great Emperor Ziwei wouldn't kill? It was clearly something that great Emperor Ziwei could do easily, so why would he ask for Zhen Yuanzi's help? Obviously, his order wasn't targeted at Daluo Jingxian, but at the powerful mediums of the untainted land. When it came to the unstable factors of the untainted land, of course, it was the powerful mediums. Throughout the several destructive catastrophes that the untainted land had experienced, they were all caused by the powerful mediums. Therefore, as long as all the powerful mediums of the untainted land left the untainted land would be countless times safer than before, even if it wasn't 100% safe. As for the remaining Daluo Jingxian, what could they do? Not to mention Feng Zichen, any powerful mediums could kill them all with a flip of their palm. However, Daluo Jingxian was easy to deal with, but the powerful mediums were not. There was no doubt that they belonged to the top of the untainted land and were one of the rulers of the untainted land. They were the incarnations of the will of the Great Path. They were incomparably ancient and powerful, and they had countless trump cards. Even if the saints had strength that far surpassed them, they wouldn't be willing to fall out with them easily. The power they had was enough to destroy the untainted land. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be to get them to leave the untainted land. It was precisely because of this that Feng Zichen had scruples and turned to Zhen Yuanzi for help. Speaking of which, if it weren't for the failure to kill Taoist Mu Xian this time, Feng Zichen wouldn't have dared to propose such a bold idea. The powerful mediums had an unshirkable responsibility for the failure to kill Taoist Mu Xian. Therefore, Feng Zichen had a high chance of implementing this plan with this reason. This was a rare opportunity. If he missed this opportunity, he didn't know how long he would have to wait for the next one. Therefore, regardless of whether it was successful or not, Feng Zichen had to give it a try. Moreover, he might not necessarily fail. Zhen Yuanzi was the key to the success of this plan. As long as he could get his help, the plan would have a 60 to 70% chance of success. As for whether Zhen Yuanzi would agree or not, Feng Zichen wasn't worried at all. Zhen Yuanzi's character could be imagined as he was able to become good friends with Ancestor Red Cloud. Moreover, in order to stop the spread of the untainted land in the west, Zhen Yuanzi went to the border between the east and the west alone and set up a Taoist right there. He had blocked the untainted land for countless years. Therefore, Zhen Yuanzi was someone who cared about the untainted land. Feng Zichen persuaded him with the safety of the untainted land. With Zhen Yuanzi's character, it was hard for him to refuse. This was how a gentleman could be taken advantage of. Although it was shameless, it was effective. Forget it. For the safety of the untainted land, the poor Wei will sacrifice my face to persuade my old friends to leave the untainted land. Zhen Yuanzi hesitated for a moment before he gritted his teeth and said, "This was a job that would offend people. Asking people to move for no reason, even if the reason was justified, would be disliked by people." This time, Zhen Yuanzi was really taking a huge risk. Ziwei is here to treat all living beings in the untainted land. Thank you for your righteousness. After Zhen Yuanzi agreed, Feng Zichen hurriedly stood up and bowed to him to thank him for his righteous action today. This time, Ziwei owes you a favor. If you need my help in the future, I will do my best to help. Feng Zichen thought for a while and felt that words of gratitude were far less direct than actions. Therefore, he directly promised Zhen Yuanzi. Once he said this, it meant that in the future, Feng Zichen would do his best for Zhen Yuanzi. One had to know that with Feng Zichen's strength, he was not inferior to any saint. With his full strength, he could even suppress a primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. From this, one could see the weight of his promise this time. In normal times, this was a result that even a supreme-grade primordial spirit treasure could not exchange for. Ha ha! Your Majesty, you're exaggerating. There's no time to lose. The poor Wei will go now. With a chuckle, Zhen Yuanzi said goodbye to Feng Zichen and turned to leave the Ziwei Heavenly Palace. It was not difficult to persuade the Great Masters to leave the untainted land. As long as the Great Masters ranked at the top of the untainted land all agreed, the remaining Great Masters would be easy to deal with. However, it wasn't a simple matter to get the agreement of the top-ranked great divinities. Fortunately, Feng Zichen would not let Zhen Yuanzi fight alone. While he asked Fuxi to accompany Zhen Yuanzi to persuade the Great Masters, he tried to contact the saints who were far away in outer space. There had to be a leader to move out of the untainted land, and this leader had to be important. Only then would he be able to set an example. And this candidate in the untainted land, could there be a more suitable candidate than the saint? The saint was the spokesperson of the heavenly Tao in the untainted land. Their every move represented the will of the heavens. If the saint was the first to leave the untainted land, it would mean that it was the will of the heavens. When the other great masters saw this, their resistance would not be so strong. Who would dare to go against the will of the heavens? The saints had no reason to disagree with this matter that concerned the safety of the untainted land. Even if they did not agree, the heavenly Tao would not force them to agree. Therefore Feng Zichen was not worried that the saints would refuse at all. Rumble. On this day the untainted land, which had been peaceful for many years, suddenly, there was a huge commotion, and the entire earth was shaking. Such a strange situation naturally attracted the attention of countless people. Therefore, everyone looked in the direction of the sound. But then, they were shocked. As far as the eye could see, there were many unbelievable scenes. They saw the towering Kunlun mountain, where the Eastern ancestral bloodline was located, the Taoist field of Heavenly Lord Yuanshi suddenly trembled violently, emitting endless rays of light, as if it was about to rise from the ground. And the change was not only that. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.